Oh.
Ma'am, are you sharing your screen already? Can you please, how about, are you ready?
No, not yet. We're working.
Do we need Frank back here?
Well, there you go.
There you go.
Tim. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the December 2nd, 2020 Town Board meeting. Please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Jeff? Oh, Jeff's muted.
Jeff, can you unmute yourself, Renahan? Yeah. Can they hear?
I'm not just texting him.
Jeff, you here?
Yeah, there he is.
Jeff?
Jeff, can you hear us? Jessica, can you hear us?
Yeah, Jay, if you're trying to get hold of me, I can't hear you guys.
Can you hear us now, Jeff?
I'm not here. I'm not sure that anyone on Zoom is able to hear.
Jessica, can you hear us
This is
now?
Beth Darlington. I can hear you.
Can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, but the town hall is trying to chime in and I can't hear them.
Can you hear us now, Jeff?
The meeting room is muted, that's why. Tim,
Hey, we can see you, but we can't hear
the
you.
top one would be meeting room, it looks like it's muted.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear everybody. I think it's just the town hall's problem.
Yeah, hold on one sec.
They have to unmute their meeting room.
It's the top one meeting room. You see it?
I see it.
Everything is audible. The alternative.
There it goes. Jeff, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right,
Yeah.
back to roll call. Jeff?
Jeff Renahan, First Ward.
Bill
Bill
Carlos?
Carlos, second ward. Bill Carlos, second ward.
Jessica Lopez, Third Ward.
Michael Safone, 4th Ward. Stefan Krakauer, 5th Ward.
Ann Shershon, 6th Ward.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Jim Nelson, attorney for the town, with
Sarah Ryan, Bedwater.
John Baisley, Town Supervisor. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's meeting. On tonight's agenda, item number 1, a public hearing to discuss the historic designation of Williams House Complex at Vassar College. Item number 2, a public hearing moratorium on gas filling stations. Item number 3, appoint Eric Lamery as a temporary full-time police assistant due to leave of absences. 4, authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Partridge Venture Engineering for continuing asbestos evaluation at the police station. Item 5, accept Taryn Riley resignation as personnel administrator. 6, reappoint Andrea Balga to the Board of Assessment Review. 7, accept certificate of attendances for planning board members. 8, waive Bacio's liquor license.
Excuse me, Chairman, could you ask people to mute themselves, all the attendants? Because the feedback is terrible because we haven't asked all the attendants to mute ourselves.
Better yet, Felicia.
You just mute them all? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And number 9, set a date for public hearing on town code amendments for sewers, which will be withdrawn for tonight and brought back at a later date. I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing number 1 on historic designation of Williams House Complex at Vassar College.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Will the applicant for the historic designation please come up? You're the first one to speak.
Mr. Supervisor, can I just chime in real quick?
Somebody,
Can you hear me?
David Cooper wants to say something. David, did you have something to say?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's not
Okay,
quite
just-
as loud
just-
as it should be, but
Okay, I'll speak loud.
thank you.
I just want to make clear, as we open the public hearing, if you would like to provide public comment, please provide public comment orally. There is a chat function on the Zoom meeting, but comments made in the Zoom chat will not be part of the public record. So please, if you're going to make a comment, please make it orally tonight.
I
Thank you,
did take a
guys.
list from the chat so far of who'd like to speak, so I have a little bit of a start on that, but there are quite a
Yep.
few people, so if you can just bear with us. We have 2 people that want to present, and then I have 1 person here that would like to speak, and then I do have a list started, which I'll address in the order they came in the chat room by the time.
Perfect, thank you.
And to let everybody know, the applicant will get 15 minutes to speak and present their case. Vassar College will have 15 minutes to speak after that to present their case, and any resident or any other interested party will get 3 minutes, and we ask everybody to please adhere to those times as we have a rather large agenda tonight, and we want to get through it all in a timely manner, so if you do go above your time, we will ask you to stop. Good evening.
Good evening, thank you. I'd like to be given a moment to open the PowerPoint before my time starts. Would that be okay?
Yep.
Unfortunately, the printer did not notice the word staple in my request, so I have a submission for the board, but it's missing a staple. Would it be okay to distribute it? And so could you continue to collate?
She's not on Zoom, so when she does the presentation, the Zoom people will not see it. So
Won't they if she shares her screen?
if she shared the screen, if she was in a Zoom meeting on the laptop.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So I didn't know if they want to project it. I know he has a camera.
Yeah, if you can do that, that'd be fine. Well, she's put together.
Projector now?
Would it make sense for me to join Zoom from this computer so that I
No,
can?
because then there'd be a lot of feedback if you join Zoom in the same room. It's crazy. See?
Yeah, it definitely gives
We
us
don't
a
want to go
hard-
there. It's already a little bit difficult.
Sorry, this computer is
That's okay. We're getting our stuff together too.
still
So.
opening. Thank you. I need the battery. It's opening so slow. I hope it's the
Can't
PowerPoint.
find the cover page for this one.
Okay, then don't use it. Must have gotten attached to the back of another one.
I'm looking.
So I'll be submitting the compiled support to date for our application, and that does not include support submitted in the last 4 days. Without a battery, I'm gonna lose my notes.
Okay, I'm going to go get your battery.
Thank you so much.
Take this up there.
Yes, please. Extra copies, Vassar College is welcome to. please. Oh my, is that cold?
You ready?
Cheers, I think so. Should we drop the lights a little bit so that the contrast in the slides is visible? Would that be okay?
You drop this, and we should be fine.
Get a clock. Members of the board of the town of Poughkeepsie, my name is Jennifer Burke Goldschmidt. This is my husband Neil Levenger, and with Neil and Julie Sabo, together we are the coordinators of the Arlington Neighborhood Association. I want to start by thanking you for your service to the town through such a difficult year and for accepting our application for historic landmark preservation of 159 to 171 College Avenue. Before I begin, I would also like to recognize Vassar College and thank you for participating in this hearing and for your generosity to the town of Poughkeepsie. And I'd like to, before we even begin, state my support and the support of the entire Arlington Neighborhood Association for the Vassar College in an Institute. I want to say that it will be, wow, there's so much feedback. Does anyone know why?
Put your hand over the mic.
It will be a gift to this community and to the town when it is completed, something that we all are proud to have in both Arlington and in Poughkeepsie. So this is the Arlington neighborhood. Technically, Arlington as a post office district is bigger, but this is the Arlington residential neighborhood and Vassar College. Brian Swarthout, the vice president of Vassar College, in May of 2021, stated eloquently that the neighborhood has developed around Vassar College, and really Vassar sets the foundation for the character of our community, for the community character. You can see in the middle of this map the parcel where Williams House and the Green, as well as 159 College, are located right here. This is the parcel that includes the 3 Williams House buildings, 159 College in the lower left corner, and the Vassar Alumni House, as well as 136 Fulton Avenue. This is slightly an error. I believe it's a 8-acre parcel, but I'll correct that later. You can also visualize here the topography and landscape of the parcel. Okay, I'm going to run through a bunch of slides just to give everyone on the town board who may not have spent that much time on this parcel before this hearing to have a look. This is the green that surrounds the buildings we're talking about at the center of the Arlington neighborhood. Oops. And these are the houses, the historic homes that live across the street and adjacent to this parcel. And you can get a real feel for the historic quality of the Arlington residential neighborhood. The houses on top here directly face the parcel, and you can see 159 College. These are adjacent to the parcel. This is a residential neighborhood. This is what the 3 Williams House buildings looked like when they were first built. You can see when they had landscape around them, their beauty and warmth. This is in the winter without the foliage. These are pictures today, and I will, to be perfectly transparent, say that many of these pictures have been slightly lightened. So I will show you the difference between the color of Williams Hall buildings today and these photographs. The reason I lightened them is A, it's very hard to see them on the PowerPoint in their dark state, and also because their original color, French gray, reflects what they should look like. And their current color, without a paint job, it makes it very difficult to imagine what they look like and what they should look like. So this is a slightly lightened version of Williams Hall today. In contrast, you can see what Williams Hall looked like and 159 College on the right. So there's the difference. Okay? They feel like a village. This is behind the building. courtyard is very beautiful, although at this moment in the history of Williams Hall, the landscape features and the bushes around it have been stripped away. So there's no trees and no bushes. You can also see in this picture the holes where the window boxes used to hang. I love this picture because it really gives you a feeling of the layout of this part of Arlington and the town of Poughkeepsie. It's beautifully laid out, the courtyard. 159 College. A beautiful Tudor Revival home. I grew up in a Tudor Revival home. It was built in 1980, and it didn't come close to this beauty. Community support for preservation includes the 200 emails that were received this week by the town board, the Arlington Neighborhood Survey that was sent to 500 residential homes in the Arlington neighborhood, to which we received 153 responses, a yield of almost 1 in 3. The community petition with 60 signatures, a letter of support from Vassar College and faculty and staff signed by 57 staff and faculty, and the Vassar College Student Association letter of support and survey that included 189 respondents. This week, and I think we were only able to tally the first 130, so 70 are not tallied. The 200 emails in support included 74 from Ward 6, 24 more from across the town, 10 from the city of Poughkeepsie, 20 from Greater Dutchess County, and 5 from New York City. The location of the survey respondents was throughout the neighborhood. This is not a response by a few neighbors. This is a community response. And this was only the survey respondents who identified their addresses. So you can see that they're spread out on 10 or 11 different streets. The survey results included 85% surveyed who were not comfortable, who were against the replacement of these historic buildings with parking lots. But when we asked how they felt about this hotel and this Inn and Institute, if it were located at another site in the residential neighborhood, that resistance of 85% was reduced to a quarter of its size, and those in favor tripled. People were concerned with the loss of green space, the destruction of historic buildings, and the changing character of our neighborhood, as well as the loss of the potential loss of 22 residential units and of our neighbors. Now, if you want to say something about the constituents in the city of Poughkeepsie and Dutchess County in New York City, that they don't get a vote, they don't get a say of what happens in the town of Poughkeepsie, then we also have to say that these trustees of Vassar College who live in California and Maryland and Pennsylvania, Washington, Wisconsin, China, and India, that they also don't get a say of how we together plan our community and our town and our neighborhood. We understand that the trustee donating the money feels very strongly that it must go on this parcel, but she too is not a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie. This is the farmer's market. This is the view from the top of the hill. I have to tell you, I only looked at houses, my husband and I only looked at houses that backed up to Vassar College when we were ready to buy a house in Poughkeepsie, because we trusted that living against the college meant that there would not be commercial development right in our backyard. My son asked me last week why we bought a house that backed up to Vassar College, because I spend a fair amount of time on this. He didn't believe me when I said it was quite deliberate. As far as the siting, this is actually when Vassar College was trying to experiment with where to put parking for the current Williams Hall. But you can see where I circled, there's a bench at the top of that hill. There's a bench that looks out on all of Vassar College's campus, looks out on this entire property. It's the top site point of this hill. And we've sat there many times. And if this property is destroyed, we will no longer look out on the historic Williams Hall buildings or Vassar campus. We will look at the rooftop and parking lots of this project misplaced in this location. Let's talk about the Williams Hall buildings. They were designed and built by notable architects Hunt and Hunt, and the property was designed by the architect of Central Park, the Olmsted brothers. This had to be a very special building to choose the leading architects in the country at the time to design it. Because if it was just a dorm to stick your faculty into, you definitely wouldn't spend the money on the top architect in the country. And they're beautiful buildings. And these are the architectural plans still in the Vassar Archive from the Olmsted that propose this walkway, that's this path right here that is still there now today. Let's talk about the architectural features of Tudor Revival. There is steel in the exterior walls. It was never meant to be weight-bearing. Tudor Revival was supposed to indicate what those buildings looked like 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago when they held up the roofs. There's a slate roof there today, steeply pitched gables, window boxes that have been removed for now. There's a charm, beautiful entrances, rough cast stucco. There's a geometry between the windows and the doors and beautiful patterns that you've seen today of the Tudor itself. Bay windows and sleeping porches, fireplaces in every unit, wood floors, built-in bookshelves, high ceilings. There's the roof. It's in wonderful shape. And the drawing of the original door, which used to be wood. And look at how magical those entrances are. It's almost like being in a fairy tale when you walk around. Vassar College, in their submission to the Historic Commission, said that the original color of French gray was changed, the window boxes were removed, and the landscaping was altered. This is what Tudor is supposed to look like, high contrast between the wood and the paint. Like Alumni House, like 159 College. But without a paint job, we lose that contrast. And when we brighten it, it's back. And look how beautiful it is. Without, with. So the shabby appearance of that darker paint color does not behoove the beauty of Williams Hall. Slam Architects were hired by Vassar College in 2007. They're a national firm with 10 offices around the country. And they said Williams remains fundamentally sound and is a key element of the Raymond Avenue streetscape. They suggested that it would cost $3.8 million with a highly detailed, itemized list that would allow these buildings to conform to current ADA and environmental standards. It also included an allowance for the abatement of hazardous materials. Vassar has already replaced all the windows and abated the asbestos. So in $2,007, what it would cost to bring these buildings to code, to renovate, including the kitchens and bathrooms in every apartment, according to this estimate, would be well under $5 million. Slam Architects are also an integrated construction service firm, and they are engineers as well, so I trust their estimate, as did Vassar at the time. Donald Friedman of the organization Old Structures in New York, who wrote 2 books for architects and engineers about historic buildings, he said the issues with this building are not structural. It's MEP issues, mechanical, electric, MEP, and plumbing. That there's a fire egress issue. It's not necessary to bring existing buildings up to code or follow every provision. There are compromises in place in the law. And once these buildings receive local designation, they get many, many more exceptions. There are many options to bring these buildings to renovation, very affordable options. The present condition of Williams Hall is excellent. The narrative of neglect comes from the superficial appearance that betrays Williams, due to the stark look without landscaping, the removal of the window boxes, and the dark exterior paint color. The 21 residential units, 21 of the 22 were in continuous use for 100 years, and only 1 unit was ever gutted, and that's the unit that appeared in the photographs Vassar submitted to the town. There's an original window box. Vassar said it was disintegrating, Vassar College, so I zoomed in on it, and I don't see that it's disintegrating. I see that it lasted 100 years with original wood features, so I decided to put them back. Thanksgiving. This is Williams Hall with its window boxes. Without those window boxes that were part of the design of the building, it doesn't look right. And if we planted in the window boxes, how much more beautiful Williams would look. They can't cost more than about $200 a piece to rebuild if they are not still in the storage. The historical significance of Williams Hall to Vassar and the town is multifaceted. Williams Hall was built at the time of the 19th Amendment, and I don't think that's a coincidence. The 20 years that led up to that included a great deal of activism at Vassar College, and part of that was activism by its women faculty. The Williams name is part of the history of Williams Hall, the Williams name. The people who lived in Williams Hall included Clara Mildred Thompson. She helped found UNESCO. She wrote the founding charter for the United Nations. And many other leading scholars in the world lived in this building, and they are listed in the application. The women faculty at Vassar were not allowed to protest or speak out for suffrage. I don't have a clock, Neil.
I'm keeping track.
You have
Thank
2
you, but I
minutes.
need to keep track.
2 minutes.
Okay, I need to, I'm sorry. They had to meet off campus in the graveyard. Suffrage was very much a part of what was happening, and that graveyard rally was in the New York Times. So the groundbreaking was in 1921, and then Alumni House followed. The women, after President Taylor resigned, the women at Vassar organized as a group to plan these buildings. It was amazing that on their own behalf, they planned for their own housing, and that Vassar would do this. Harriet Trumbull Williams was the wife of James Harvey Williams, and together they owned this foundry in Brooklyn. By 1909, they had 400 employees. The Williams name of that foundry is the same Williams tools at Snap-on. Snap-on boasts of Williams tools. The groundbreaking, Harriet Williams stood for the rights of workers, including the professors at Vassar. The groundbreaking of Williams Hall brought out everyone from the community. It was very crowded. Okay, Vassar has a great deal of history of concern for the community. New York state law. New York state law says that historic preservation enhances our communities, and the town of Poughkeepsie Code does as well, and I will submit this at the end of tonight or tomorrow by email. The feasibility and economics of preservation are profound. Williams has always been a source of profit, not liability. Empty university spaces are prime real estate for developers to lease and to manage. State and federal preservation tax credits bring the cost of renovating Williams down 40%. Total reconfiguration priced at $20 million is elective and not necessary. And there have already been local developers curious about Williams who I've spoken to. Affordability. Vassar's net worth is $1.6 billion. I'll wrap up in a moment. Sorry. They have enormous fundraising power, and the cost of renovating Williams is a fraction of that. It has been shown that historic preservation enhances property values. There are many, many reasons to preserve. Preserving these buildings would bring revenue. The town of Poughkeepsie can have the tax revenue from the Innan Institute and preserve this beautiful property. We have a great deal of support for this preservation on the state and national level. SHPO declared this building eligible for the National Registry and submitted 2 letters of concern to Vassar with this demolition. They signed the letter of resolution because they have no legal right not to.
The time is up,
Thank
so
you.
if you want to wrap it up.
Okay, I'll wrap up.
If you want to send your PowerPoint to
I will.
my
This is the end of it.
office, you can.
This is the end of it. We support Vassar's development of this Innan Institute at this location across the street, right here. It would still face the Alumni House, and this property is 8 acres for a 1.5 acre building, and there's plenty of parking there and plenty of room to put it on the north side of campus, where the comprehensive plan of the town of Poughkeepsie recommended Vassar develop. This is from the comprehensive plan of the town of Poughkeepsie, directly across the street. And that would preserve the beauty, and when people came to the Innan Institute, they would want to buy houses in the town of Poughkeepsie when they saw the beauty of this central parcel. And that is the end of my presentation. I thank you, and I apologize for going over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm going to go to the list that I have. And,
No,
oh, that's right.
Vassar's
Sorry
next.
about that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Brian?
Vassar's now going to give a short presentation that'll be 15 minutes long as well.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you to the board. I'm so happy to be in front of you tonight and take up this very important issue. really appreciate your time. Vassar has a physical plant that goes back 150 years, more than 150 years, and we have a responsibility for stewarding our resources, including our physical resources, to serve our mission in perpetuity. The decision to remove a building is never easy or straightforward. When we consider whether to remove a building, we weigh many factors, including the cultural and architectural heritage and significance of the building, the cost to maintain and renovate the building, and whether the structure best serves our mission now and in the future. We're here today to focus on the first of these, the cultural and architectural significance of the Williams buildings and surrounding area. But all of the above have been considered heavily and has led us to our decision and our conclusion that the buildings under consideration are not worth keeping. In my role as president of Vassar, I urge the town board not to accept the commission's recommendation for several reasons. First, the building and surrounding area do not meet the criteria for town designation of a town landmark. Second, it is not economically a sound decision for the college to renovate and maintain these failing buildings. And third, the proposed use for the site, which requires the removal of Williams and the building of the Institute and Inn, provides enormous benefits to the town. Beginning with the first of these reasons, the buildings and the surrounding area do not meet the criteria for the town landmark designation. In the town code, which you can see on the Zoom right now, in the town code, chapter 126, there are two criteria for designating buildings as a town landmark. The first criterion is that the buildings are associated with famous events that are of particular significance to the heritage of the town, or that the buildings reflect antiquity and have unique architectural construction and design of particular significance to the heritage of the town. Williams does not fulfill this criterion, as it has never been a venue for public or famous events. It has always been a private home for faculty of Vassar College. It's never hosted any public events, let alone famous events. Nor does Williams represent unique architectural construction and design of particular significance to the heritage of the town. The Williams architecture, while designed by Hunt and Hunt, is not unique, as Alumni House was also designed by Hunt and Hunt, and according to experts is a truer and better example of that firm's work and the American Tudor architectural style. Alumni House was constructed with far better materials and has withstood the test of time, as Williams has not. The two cannot be called near twin sisters, as noted by the Historical Preservation Commission, because Williams is far lesser quality in terms of both the architectural construction and design, and they serve completely different purposes. Alumni House serves 40,000 alumni with multiple events a year, bringing people back from all over the country and all over the world. Alumni House, in contrast, houses 20 faculty. In fact, Williams' history is more like that of Kendrick Hall, which was built at just about the same time, also to house women professors, but it was built from much better material, and unlike Williams, built from subpar materials, Kendrick Hall has sustained. The Historic Preservation Commission also suggested that the green space around Williams and Alumni House, called the Rock Lot, has special importance because they argue the revered landscape architects, the Olmsted brothers, designed the area as an open park space. Well, we have found no such design or plan. The Olmsted brothers did not design the area with an open park. Rather, the Olmsted brothers sketch shows a row of building sites for residences across the entirety of what is now known as the Alumni House lawn. The vision was not for an open green, and here's the Olmsted picture that you see on your screen. That vision is not for an open green, but rather 5 building lots stretching from the south to the north on the southern side of that picture, from the south to the north, 5 building lots. Our plan keeps this area largely open and far more park-like than these Olmsted drawings ever did. Let me turn to the second criterion set forth in the town code for the town landmark. The second criterion up on the screen is that the preservation of the building can be made a landmark if it is a public necessity in harmony with the town master plan and will promote public health, safety, and general welfare. This is hard to see with Williams. It's not for use by the public, and it is not even mentioned in the town master plan. The buildings have been previously used only for faculty housing, and we now have other faculty housing options, which are more up-to-date, more economically feasible, and more in keeping with the way people want to live today. Williams remaining in this place and therefore precluding the building of the Institute and Inn at this location compromises the town's general welfare, as job and visitor growth associated with the Inn and Institute would not occur. I want to move now to the economic aspect of Williams. The buildings have not aged well, and the cost to renovate it for any productive use are prohibitive. Although the neighbors may quote a $3.8 million investment needed from a study conducted 12 years ago, we have now conducted a far more comprehensive, up-to-date, and accurate analysis of what would be needed to maintain Williams. The conclusion of our analysis is that it is a $17 million investment to reuse the buildings for faculty housing, which translates into $800,000 per apartment. Making a capital investment of that magnitude for housing that is not needed by the college just does not make good economic sense. Vassar has many historic buildings, and we would be unable to invest in Williams without sacrificing other projects. In terms of the alternative use for the Williams site, the building of the Institute and Inn is a project that is already funded with donated funds that are not transferable to another project or another use, and that will create multiple immediate benefits to the town. The Institute and Inn will create 150 to 200 local construction jobs and 45 additional permanent local service jobs. The Inn will also provide the town with tax revenue to support the town's many goals, either to support existing services or to provide tax relief to town residents. Moreover, the Institute and Inn will attract tourism and visitors to the area to patronize the restaurants, the shops, the services in Arlington. We have 20,000 visitors a year that come to see the college, and yet few stay overnight in Arlington because of the lack of accessible and attractive local accommodations. The Institute and Inn will help our area become a destination spot in the Hudson Valley, drawing new visitors. The Dutchess County Executive, Dutchess Tourism, the Arlington Business Improvement District, and the more than 50 faculty, staff, and neighbors who have written to the town board are supportive of removing Williams and building the Institute and Inn on this site. Throughout the planning, we have sought to retain as much of the green space as possible. We put up markers for the buildings and have walked it, and it truly leaves the majority of the green space, much more than is currently used by the farmers market. Additionally, we've committed to retaining the green space for decades ahead, and we have created a fund to support the town activities on the green in the future, and we look forward to supporting the farmers market and events there. Here's the site with the Inn and Institute on it, and you can see the green, up and down Raymond. The vast majority of that is still there. And then the next slide, Wes? And this is a site to the Institute walking out of Arlington Town Center from the north down towards the south. It's a very large green area before one gets to the Institute. Interestingly, some thought the placing of the Institute and Inn at this location was not in keeping with the town master plan, but actually, if one looks at the existing town master plan, there already was an area planned right here with buildings on it, and our proposal is consistent with that existing vision. In conclusion, we have given careful consideration to the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation, as well as the criteria in the town code for designating town landmarks, and we do not believe Williams or the surrounding area should be so designated. The Williams building and surrounding area do not meet the criteria set forth in the town code to be designated a town landmark. They are not associated with famous events, and they do not represent unique architectural construction and design of particular significance to the heritage of the town. and they are not a public necessity in harmony with the town master plan that will promote public health, safety, and welfare. Williams is a private faculty residence hall, which does not best serve our mission now or in the future. Vassar is fully prepared to move forward and remove Williams and begin building the Institute and Inn. The project is ready, it's funded, it's ready to go as soon as the town approves it through planning and town boards. Making Williams and the surrounding area a town landmark would halt this project and set Vassar back substantially in its ability to contribute to the economic growth of this area. We hope you will agree with us that it's in the best interest of the town to reject the recommendation of the Town Historic Preservation Commission and allow us to move ahead to the planning board process. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
Brian Swarthout is going to use some of my time. Since I
Thank you,
didn't go.
President Bradley.
Thank you.
Brian?
Hi, thank you, members of the town board. I am the Vice President for Finance Administration at Vassar, and in that role, I'm the Chief Financial Officer and also the Head of Facilities. And it's in that role that I wanted to talk about the cost to renovate Williams. The ANA showed some pictures of Williams that made it look beautiful, but if you look closer and really take a closer look, unfortunately, it's much more grim. It would cost, as President Bradley said, at least $17 million to renovate Williams for 22 units. At over $800,000 a unit, that's more than 3 times what it would normally cost for apartment units in this area. The ANA showed a report that talked about the SLAM report done 12 years ago. That report noted that more analysis needed to be done in order to really get to what this would cost, and we've done that analysis. So you think about what is different between the $5 million of that report in today's dollars to the $17 million that we're talking about. After 12 years of aging, there's just considerably more work that needs to be done. First of all, Vassar is committed to accessibility, so as we do renovations, we want to make buildings accessible, and Williams is not accessible. To make it accessible would really mean we have to completely change the flow of the interiors and just redo the insides of the building, which is pretty expensive. It would require putting in an elevator, new accessible parking, so significant work. At the time that SLAM did their report, their visual inspection from the ground showed that the slate roof was in good working order. But we have done further analysis today. There's now slate missing, it's crumbling, and it's starting to delaminate, which means it's pulling apart and just falling apart. So the roof needs to be replaced, and slate roofs are quite expensive. The exterior facade is also failing. That stucco, at the time that SLAM did the report, some of it needed to be patched and painted, but we've done further analysis, and approximately 70% of it is peeling off and needs to be taken down and replaced completely. The wiring needs to be replaced. There's a lot of original cloth-covered wiring that is still within that building, so 100-year-old wiring. When SLAM did their report, they said it was past its useful life. It just needs to be replaced. And it's really insufficient for modern electronics. There's no insulation in the exterior walls, so a renovation of this building, we would want to insulate that, which means getting into all of those walls. All of the interior plumbing that needs to go, those bathrooms and kitchens that report said need to be fixed, that all needs to be replaced. The basement needs to be excavated out and around so it can be waterproof, because you're starting to see water perpetrate the basement, and the egress needs to be improved. The stairs going up to the units are barely broader than my shoulders, and so it just doesn't provide good means of egress, particularly in an emergency. So all of that now in today's work would be $17 million at least. Now some might say a more modest renovation is possible, but in my role as head of finance and facilities, I just don't agree. Why would we patch and paint walls when we know behind it is electrical circuits that need to be replaced or plumbing that is leaking? Why would we do cosmetic work repairing the building when we know the roof needs to be repaired, and if we don't replace it, it will leak and damage the work that we've done? Any work done to clean up those units would need to be redone when we actually got into those walls and replaced it. So it's just not a responsible investment to not do it all, and we just wouldn't do it. Whereas if you look at the Institute, a $30 million project that's fully gift funded, that brings benefits to the town and job creation and tax revenue, without the Institute, all those benefits would be gone. Now you might say, redirect the funds to Williams, but that's just not possible. The gifts have been given for the purpose of developing the Institute.
One
We're
minute, Brian.
we're legally obligated to spend the money to that purpose, and if we don't do it, we'd likely have to give the money back, which would take the investment away from the town. And if we have 2 more minutes, Mike Devonshire, one of our experts, would talk. Is that all right? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Mike Devonshire, principal of J's PA Architects, a historic preservation firm founded in 1947 in New York City, where I've worked since being a National Trust intern there in 1979. I serve on the New York City Landmarks Commission and served on the New York State Historic Preservation Board for 10 years and on the board of US ICOMOS, a UNESCO branch dealing with heritage sites around the world. I've also taught and lectured at historic preservation at Columbia University, University of Massachusetts, the Preservation Institute in Nantucket, and NYU. I concur completely with what President Bradley has said regarding the Williams houses. The Williams houses are not of historic significance. Much has been said about the Williams houses being a twin to the Alumni House. My office performed a conditions assessment of the Williams houses recently, and our forensic review revealed that the only similarities between Alumni House and the Williams houses are the general Tudor Revival style, which they share, and the architects. While the Alumni House was built with the highest quality materials, our study showed that the Williams houses were constructed of much lower grade materials and less than ideal construction details and methods. Very likely, in my opinion, the result of what the construction industry calls value engineering, a cost-saving technique which rarely is a good thing for a building. As a result, the Williams houses, unlike the Alumni House, have experienced accelerated deterioration from the very beginning and will continue to be an albatross for Vassar. Our only study has shown that the Williams houses cannot be merely restored or renovated, but must be nearly
That would be equal
completely
time for each.
reconstructed.
That would be
Sorry?
equal time for each.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wrap it up, your time's just about done.
The Williams houses, based on the poor construction and materials, were doomed from the beginning to be a maintenance millstone and, frankly, an embarrassment to Vassar and likewise to the town of Poughkeepsie. Again, it's my expert opinion that Williams is not of historic significance and does not meet the criteria of the town code for designation as a town landmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go from here on to
And if I could
residents.
just ask too, if people could keep the chat to just wanting to sign up, because it's been very distracting this evening with all the chatting comments. Thank you very much. The first person that I have is Robert Brigham, if you'd like to speak for 3 minutes. Robert? He's light up.
Robert, are you there?
He's there, he's not, he might have stepped away.
Robert? You want to try the next one, please?
Okay, Robert, we'll come back to you if, Mark Epstein, are you there?
Wait, Jessica's waiting. Is it Jessica?
Wait a minute, did you mute it? But now we can't hear Jessica. Can't hear David Cooper.
I cut you off, Robert. I could just tell that they couldn't hear you,
Okay.
so I wanted to stop it.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you.
sorry about that. We're back, I
Got
think.
us?
Robert, it's your turn to speak if you're there.
Okay, I am here. Can you hear me?
Now we
ahead,
can,
Robert.
yes, sorry about that.
All right. Thank you very much. As you probably know, Vassar College is the only top-tier liberal arts school in the country that doesn't have its own space to convene conferences and produce cutting-edge solutions to the world's most intractable problems. In fact, many of our peer schools have more than one of these conference centers and inns. Middlebury, Williams, Amherst, and Wellesley have multiple options. The proposal for the Inn and Institute will cement Vassar's position in the leadership of liberal arts education. But the site of the Inn and Institute is just as important as the Institute's mission. Located just across the street from our academic and residential buildings, the Inn and Institute will serve as that symbolic bridge between the academic world and the real world that the research coming out of this institute will help inform. The placement of the inn so close to campus and close to Arlington will also mean that our elderly visitors to the Inn and Institute will be able to take advantage of both the campus and the community. We won't need shuttles to go back and forth. The Inn and Institute located on the green will also allow our visitors to spend time and, yes, money in the local Arlington area. Since coming to Vassar 26 years ago, I've had to turn down hundreds of thousands of dollars from foundations who wanted us to host conferences on important issues in international relations. We simply had no place to put them and no place to run our workout sessions. The Inn and Institute will change all that, and it will change Arlington's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Next up is Mark Epstein.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm so pleased to be here, and I was glad to hear arguments on both sides. I've been teaching religion and the arts, including religious and secular architecture at Vassar for almost 3 decades. And I lived in Williams for 5 years in the early 2000s. So I feel it's appropriate that I speak out regarding that building as both a former resident and a knowledgeable architectural critic. While the building has some charm, more, it must be admitted, when it was new, it's an undistinguished architectural pastiche, something between an attenuated Tudor manse and an alpine ski chalet. The motifs it incorporates are exploited, as people have said, to much better effect in Alumni House, to which it compares, as people have testified, quite poorly. But aesthetics are the least of it. The building lacks proper accessibility. The stairways are impossible. It was impossible to move in or out if you are not in your 20s and fit. The apartments are cramped and dark. The windows are archaic, prone to leakiness and penetrability by wind, or unable to open, which in turn causes the capricious heating system to run over time. That system's extremely difficult to regulate in the apartments, making them by turns too hot or too cold. I can think of no less congenial place to live. Indeed, I fled Williams at the very first opportunity for something even marginally better, crappy housing at the end of College Avenue. And this is a sentiment shared by many faculty who lived there for want of better housing. I just spoke to my newly relocated neighbor who described his Williams apartment as having had 2 separate kitchens in which the stove worked in one but not in the other, and the sink worked in the other but not in the one. My own apartment was so cramped that my children referred to it as the compartment. Of course, it's been the long-term residents of the truly larger and more magnificent apartments at Williams who have spoken out most against the raising of the building and who have indeed agitated for its preservation. But they have parlayed their understandable personal desire to retain their apartments into specious arguments about the architectural and historical merit of the building. The plain truth is that Williams was built as cheap and affordable housing a century ago. It's outlived its usefulness, as buildings sometimes do. I don't want to make the mistake of maintaining that just
Mark, if you could wrap it up.
Excuse me?
If you could wrap it up, sorry.
It is worthy of presentation. We have much better opportunities and alternatives in the Inn and Institute at that space. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mark.
Next up, I have Melanie Rockamp. Are you
Good evening. My name is Melaine Rotkamp, and I'm a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie, as well as president and CEO of Duchess Tourism. I applaud the passion of those speaking in favor of preservation, and while there's no denying that Williams Hall is an old building in our town, I don't believe there is a uniqueness about it that is not replicated in other historic buildings on the Vassar campus, which would require its preservation. From a tourism and economic development standpoint, historic sites in our county are a draw for visitors. However, Williams House is not one that would be of significant interest to visitors to the area, and is not a site the public would have access to explore were it preserved. Vassar College is a popular destination in our town for travelers who come to enjoy the Francis Lehman Loeb Art Center, Powerhouse Theater, events like ModFest and other programming, and these are equally enjoyed by myself and other community members. The Vassar Inn and Institute project would similarly enrich the quality of life for my friends and neighbor in this town, as well as throughout the county. Further, it would advance the college's academic mission, elevate its reputation, and attract visitors from across the globe whose tourism dollars spent in Poughkeepsie would support the small neighborhood businesses we know and love, and would help reduce the tax burden on our residents through collection of sales and lodging taxes. And the Indian Institute would also be paying its share of property taxes to the town, which also benefits taxpayers. Replacing Williams House with the Indian Institute is something that would provide true benefit to the community as a whole. As such, I cannot support designating Williams House as an historic landmark in the town of Poughkeepsie. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Alicia.
Next up is John Vincentor. John? Hold on for a minute if we can't find you.
Can you
Yep.
hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Okay, great, wonderful. I'm speaking to you as a member of the Board of Directors of the Arlington Business Improvement District. It is our opinion that the fate of Williams Building in question, whether it's to be torn down, refurbished at a prohibitive price, or to apply for a historic landmark status, should be primarily the decision of the property owner. And in all honesty, the application in front of you, we view as a veiled attempt by a group to disrupt or destroy a decision by Vassar College to build an institute and inn on their chosen site, which is adjacent to the Arlington Business District. As beautiful as these buildings might be or have been, the buildings have no specific historical significance to the town of Poughkeepsie, and the New York State Department of Parks and Historic Preservations have already signed an agreement with Vassar to allow for the removal of these buildings. Our Arlington board has been in continuous communication with Vassar with regards to this project. We have found Vassar to be open and transparent in their discussions with us. We believe over time, Vassar has made meaningful modifications to the plan and have addressed traffic, parking, architecture, building size and scope, as well as environmental impacts. It is our position that the Institute and Inn project will have substantial short and long-term positive impact on the Arlington district. Its presence allows the town of Poughkeepsie to further leverage the proximity and prestige of Vassar College. It will bring jobs and activity that will benefit Arlington and the town at large. It will enable the town of Poughkeepsie, importantly, to have a seat at the table in the development and growth of Dutchess County. The Institute and Inn will serve as an anchor to the Arlington Business District in the same way that the Beekman Arms is an anchor for Rhinebeck, the Dia Arts Center, and the Metro North commuter train station is for Beacon. The project also complements our efforts toward the new Main Street Development Initiative and the City of Poughkeepsie waterfront development on the horizon. In the long-term best interest of the town of Poughkeepsie, the Arlington Business District, we respectfully ask this board to deny this application and let the project proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Next, I have up somebody that, because we turned it off maybe and started over, was missed. It's MICAH Kenfield. I'm not sure how to pronounce that.
Micah, thank you so much.
Sorry.
No problem. Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Micah Kenfield. I'm Vassar's Director of Sustainability. Tonight you've heard, and will continue to hear, a lot about the historic nature of Williams House, what it stood for when it was constructed, the benefit it had to the economic mobility and quality of life for its initial occupants, the role it served to the community. Williams House clearly had a positive impact on the lives of many. Sorry, I just noticed the screen share. Would it be possible for us to unshare screen really quickly? As much as I appreciate the question of if Vassar pays property tax. So sorry. Anyway, the best way for us to preserve the legacy of Williams isn't requiring a few buildings to undergo extensive ahistoric renovation that in turn would require a massive commitment of resources that serve only a handful of Vassar's employees. It's to welcome what comes next. The Institute for the Liberal Arts, the planned successor to the site, will be Vassar's public classroom. That's not a euphemism for conference center. It's a mission statement for our role in the community, a role that includes using the very construction process as a tool for education and outreach to those with greatest need in the community. During construction, Vassar will host a summer learning institute for local high school students, especially those in greatest need of support, to connect them with possible careers in sustainable design and construction. Our project dashboard, available freely online, will report on the positive environmental impact its net zero emission building systems are having, but it won't stop there. We'll help connect local homeowners and small businesses to funding opportunities to install these systems at their own facilities. At project completion, we're hosting a free public symposium and an accompanying free online class to provide an introduction to real-world sustainability suitable for and available to all audiences. The legacy of Williams can live on, not in continuing to house 15 or 20 of the college's faculty at most, but rather in the dozens of high school students finding high-paying jobs in the Hudson Valley while ushering in our clean energy transition, in the hundreds of homeowners and small businesses saving money on their heating and cooling bills while decreasing their carbon footprints, and in the tens of thousands of participants in our online class who will come to see the town of Poughkeepsie as a true lodestar in how to create meaningful, actionable sustainability. Ultimately, the best way that we can preserve history is for us to make history. Thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Julie Zabo.
Okay, hi, my name is Julie and I'm a Arlington Neighbor Association board member, and I just want to take a minute to respond to some of the comments. I was a resident in Williams for 6 years, and I find it insulting to the way that people talk about it as something that is substandard. It's sort of a critique of some of the choices that many of us make that like old and slightly funky or whatever it is. You know, the second thing is that this argument that is being made that historic preservation is only worthwhile not for working to honor the legacy of the working women who created it, but rather an event-based space where people come from outside, I think is ridiculous. And the strength of our argument historically was that this was a unique idea that women promoted and created and managed to get built, and that should be honored by landmarking it. So my question is, why do we as a community urge historic preservation? We as neighbors and community members have had the privilege to enjoy the siting and the style and the historical importance of these buildings. We walk our dogs by them, we picnic with our children on the grass, on the gracious lawn next to it. The neighbors look outside our windows, and we're graced with an imaginative vision of another time and place, which is represented by the hallmarks of this Tudor style. We don't make the rhythms and the rhymes of the gables, the romantic half timbering, the unusual entrances, the artistry of the oriel overhangs and outcroppings, the elegant slate shingles, the steeply sloped roofs, all the beautifully framed landscape. We don't make things like that anymore. And we in the neighborhood have enjoyed and like living and walking and being in that situation. We're proud of Harriet Williams' legacy to our community and the celebration and the honoring of its history in this concrete form that this building takes. And my parents were refugees of communism, in which history was not respected and buildings and history were erased or replaced because of an agenda of a government that didn't respect democracy. And maybe Vassar should have taken the first step of consulting the people in the community who care about the buildings and would have preferred to have the history preserved and in an institute cited elsewhere before they continually talk and spread propaganda against this idea. So the last thing I want to say, I want to just make a brief comment about Vassar's arguments for feasibility.
You have 1 minute. Could you wrap it up?
Williams has remarkably stood the test of time in its 100-year life. And I think it's shameful that Vassar has allowed both Williams and other college-owned houses in the neighborhood to deteriorate to the extent they have. And the good news is that if Williams is landmarked, Vassar will be able to apply for grants to restore it to its former splendor. So anyway, please vote yes to preserve Williams, save our neighborhood, save the value of our houses and the reasons we chose to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a Jonathan Gordon. Jonathan?
That's me. Thank you. I'd like to say a few words in support of historic landmark status for Williams Hall. Looking at Williams today, what you see looks much the same as the architect's drawing published in Vassar Quarterly in 1919. 3 beautiful Tudor-style buildings situated below and complementing Alumni House, which was designed to match it and would be built 2 years later. Williams was a sensation when it opened in May 1922 because it provided the first housing for the faculty separate from the students. The buildings reflect the women scholars who were the original residents, including wall-to-wall bookshelves, large windows for light, and window seats to sit on and read. And you can read the residents' glowing accounts of what this meant to them. In their presentation, Vassar has claimed that Williams isn't historically significant. But in 2019, the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, determined that Williams was eligible for listing in the state and national registers of historic places, both for its importance in the history of women's higher education and as an example of the Tudor Revival architectural style. They wrote that they were concerned by the prospect of demolishing Williams, and additionally wrote that the neighboring carefully landscaped Raymond Avenue Green was an inappropriate location for new construction. As you've heard, this area is now under threat. The college is proposing to construct a conference hotel on the green, with Williams to be demolished and replaced by parking lots. Vassar states high costs for renovating or reusing Williams, but it's misleading to claim that the only options are massive renovations or demolition, or that Vassar can raise funds for new construction, but finds maintaining its existing buildings a financial impossibility. Like the others who've spoken tonight, I'm not opposed to Vassar building a conference hotel, but it's wrong for them to demolish these beautiful historic buildings to do so. There are many alternative sites for development, both on and off of Vassar's enormous campus. On October 30th, the Town Historic Preservation Commission unanimously recommended that Williams be designated as a local historic landmark, writing, "Taking Williams away from this well-intentioned and carefully planned for corner of the town of Poughkeepsie would leave a needless wound on the land and the history of Arlington. Preserving this picturesque and stately corner of our town for future generations
Time up, Jonathan.
makes it and Williams Hall worthy to be protected and landmarked." Nothing I've heard tonight makes me doubt the Commission's judgment.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I urge the town board to follow their recommendation. Designating Williams as a historic landmark is essential to preserve it as a central part of the College Avenue neighborhood and the
Time's
historic
up,
core of
Jonathan.
Arlington. Without this designation, Williams is likely to be demolished, and a beautiful living part of the
Jonathan, your
identity
time
of
is
the
up.
college and the town will be lost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Jean Kane. Jean, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my camera. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very well, actually.
All right. I'm a woman, so I'm very used to hearing other people say what my knowledge is, what my experience is, and discounting them. And I've had ample reinforcement of that tonight. I have heard once again the complete misunderstanding of what it means for minority groups to have representation of their accomplishments and history, women, African Americans, and other groups. There is an African American woman who might be at this meeting, who lives on this block. Has anybody consulted her or the other residents of this neighborhood about what their desires are or what their understanding of history is? I live in Kendrick. We have to call the gas company before we can get response to gas leaks. My ceiling rained last year. I had no heat and everybody was wearing coats last year for 2 months. Don't tell me that this is something unusual for a faculty residence at Vassar. I worked on improving this road that used to be a highway of slaughter. One of the board members, I think Mr. Krakauer, was very helpful for us in improving that road, on which my former husband was hit by a truck in a taxi cab at 6 o'clock in the morning because people sped down that road. I have been to a number of these meetings. I keep hearing the same arguments that discount and refuse to be in dialogue with other points of view, but I hear a lot from vested interests. I live in this neighborhood. I'm a member of the faculty. I live in faculty housing at Vassar. I have been involved in this community. And I think the community should have been consulted before everything's ready to go, because we've been ignored. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Next is Jonathan Kane.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jonathan Kahn. I am a Vassar faculty member. I am a professor of religion and American Studies and Africana Studies, and I've been at the college for 16 years now. I was a resident in Williams' apartment for 2 years, and so I guess I'd like to begin by speaking to that. For one of those years, my wife and I had our first child, and during that time, Williams was really an inhospitable place to live. The biggest danger were the pipes and how hot they got during the winter. My wife and I had to be really pretty careful with our newborn. And in fact, one of the reasons we left and found a different faculty residence was that as he approached 1 year of age and began walking, was that we didn't want him to be able to wander around the apartment. So hot, at least at that time, hot pipes, peeling paint, poor air quality, poor air circulation, poor plumbing, all of this made it less than ideal for raising a family, at least in the apartment that we had, which is not in the wings of Williams. It was in the main building. Williams was a place I left quite willingly and happily to seek better grounds in order to feel safe in my home. I want to be clear about and sort of reiterate a point that Bob Brigham made. I too, over the years, have had to turn down numerous opportunities to bring conferences to campus because there's no place to have a conference on campus. I think that the Innit Institute will be a project that will redound to the larger community's benefit. I hope that the larger Poughkeepsie community would see the Inn and the Institute as meeting spaces that are accessible and open. The building should serve as a vehicle by which Vassar learns about and from the community, and vice versa. And done well, the Innit Institute would initiate a new era of projects and cooperation between Vassar and Poughkeepsie. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have a Johnny V. Johnny, you're out there. At least that's what it came up as on the chat. I'm going to skip over if I don't hear anything from a Johnny V soon, and I'll come back. I have Miriam Rossi. Miriam, are you out there?
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you to the board for allowing me to speak. And I think like Jonathan, who spoke before me, I guess I'm really saddened by some of these faculty members who lived in Williams and who spoke so strongly against it. I lived in Williams for 38 years, and I too raised a family there, and really did not have any of these problems that the person who spoke before me said. So I think you can take that as you like. I lived in 3 apartments. I switched as our family got larger and had absolutely no problems. But that's really not what I wanted to say. I wanted to address the issue of the fact, first of all, that I'm certainly not against Vassar building an Innit Institute, but at another location. Vassar is a world-renowned institution in the town of Poughkeepsie. The early history includes several notable female scholars. Harriet Williams, who gave funding for building Williams, graduated in 1870 in one of the first classes, and she gave her college a gift to build apartments for these female scholars. This is quite noteworthy and consistent with her family being socially conscious business owners of the Williams Tools Company in Brooklyn, New York. At that company, they had a mutual aid society, they had their own fire department, as well as having the first bath facility introduced into an American factory in 1908. Recognizing and remembering the memory of Harriet Williams and the scholars who lived in these apartments by preserving these delightful buildings is sure to have surprising economic benefits that will positively impact the surrounding community. Visitors to the Hudson Valley and Vassar are more likely to linger and return with the attractive Tudor-style architecture and the welcoming landscape in the neighborhood outside of the campus, while they stay at the Inn and Institute at a nearby location. Historic buildings and sites around the world are protected by conservation organizations, which recognize the invaluable artistic, historical, and social importance of these places. Williams Hall, with its surrounding neighbors, satisfies all these criteria. Artistically, the architects and landscape designers were the best in America at that time. As we heard at our first presentation. Okay. Historically, the housing for women faculty members are part of Vassar's and local history. Recognizing the social importance of these apartments for women faculty and the remarkable social conscience of the women who donated the money for this purpose is important. And I urge the board to vote to save Williams from destruction. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have Larry Sheehan. Larry, did you want to speak on the Vassar subject, or were you wanting to speak at the next public hearing? Or did you leave because I don't see your name anymore? Larry? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next person. It's Francisco Caruso, I believe, is the name that I have.
Yes,
Yes, you're next, sir. Did you want to speak about Vassar?
sure, yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
Go right ahead.
Can I go?
Hello, you can go.
Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you, the board, for allowing me to express my feeling about Williams' apartment. Well, since I cannot show pictures, I already sent an email message to all of you, the board members, for your better consideration. So for the audience, you might type in a browser these 4 words: Architecture Digest, 1, iconic, building, and America. And you will go into a website where the most iconic buildings in America, in USA, are shown. There are 50, 1 for each state. Page 1 is Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Please focus your attention now, or whenever you can, on slides 31, 33, and 39, okay? All of them are made by the same architect, Richard Hand and his sons, right? Okay, so it's clear there is some value in this architectural group. Richard was an architect that studied in France and created this group. The group is known as Hand and Hand Architects. They built Williams' apartment. Among other things, they built the pedestal Statue of Liberty, the facade of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, enlargement of the east wing of the Metropolitan Museum of New York, and several buildings on Fifth Avenue. So indeed, an amazing record. About Williams. These 3 buildings are the oldest in the neighborhood. Those that follow it, Alumna, and the one located at the corner of Raymond and College View, known as Juliet, are in perfect agreement. They were thought to be an ensemble.
Mr. Caruso?
So the natural link between these 3 buildings is the lawn. Was designed by who? Those that created Central Park, New York, another prestigious item to be considered and conserved. Lawn is too fortunate because it gives the sense of space, so well appreciated by people visiting Vassar College, for instance, for graduation. They conserve a good memory of restoration, harmonious neighborhood. Contrasting recognizing these merits. Well, The city of New York recognized Hurricane Han merits and built in his honor a memorial monument in Central Park, 71st Street. In contrast, the Vassar College current administration, not the previous one, is unwilling to consider the importance of the structure. This is appalling.
Thank you, Francisco.
Okay, so to replace part of this
Francisco, your time is up.
modern building, a parking lot that will destroy the harmony of this section is really
Francisco, your time is up.
unbelievable. Thank you for your attention.
Thank
I'm
you.
a former tenant of Williams.
I just want to see what they are.
Before I move on to the next person, Arlington neighborhood, are you on Zoom here in this room?
Jen?
Jen, are you on Zoom?
Closing, if I am, sorry.
If you could, that creates a large feedback being in the same room. Next up to speak is Amelia Cecil. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. It's Seyssel, I believe. Amelia? All right. Are you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. You're up. honey.
Go ahead.
Okay, just very, very short. It's been very interesting to me to hear about the buildings. I was more concerned with the green space than the open space in that area of the town of Poughkeepsie. That kind of open space that really it's so valuable to the community. And now that I've heard about the buildings themselves, I am even more convinced that that the area should be preserved.
Yellowstone or the morning show?
So that's all I want to say. Very short. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have a Luke H. Luke.
Yes, that's me, Luke Hunsberger.
Okay.
All right, I urge the town board to approve the designation of the Williams buildings in the Green Park along Raymond Avenue as local historic landmarks. You can see a picture of the interior of one of the apartments. The Vassar administration clearly doesn't care about these historic properties, but we do. The Historic Preservation Commission unanimously voted to recommend that these properties be preserved. So I think the question of historical merit has been settled. But what are the impacts? The town board must decide to preserve or not. What are the impacts of each choice? If the town board votes against historic preservation, then Vassar will demolish the Williams buildings and the house at 159 College Avenue to make room for 2 large parking lots for their inn and institute. That project will also consume roughly 1/2 of the Green Park along Raymond Avenue. A no vote will do irreparable harm to the small-scale residential neighborhood along College Avenue, for example, by increasing traffic and noise, and it will ruin the feel of the Green Park that is so treasured by the community. On the other hand, if the town board votes in favor of preservation, then Williams Hall, built in 1922, will be preserved. The first independent living quarters for single women faculty at Vassar. A yes vote will appropriately honor the innovative vision of Harriet Williams, Vassar class of 1870, who donated $100,000 to improve the lives of women faculty. A yes vote will also celebrate the Williams buildings as an example of the early 20th century Tudor revival style brought to life by the renowned Hunt and Hunt architectural firm of New York City. And a yes vote will preserve the beautiful Green Park along Raymond Avenue. A yes vote will also ensure that Vassar builds its Inn and Institute on a more appropriate site, one that does not require the demolition of any historic properties. For example, as I showed in my letter of December 1st to the town board, and as you can see in this picture, the Inn and Institute project could easily be built along College View Avenue in the same configuration as in their current proposal. That alternative site is the same distance from the Alumni House and is even closer to the Arlington Business District. I note in passing that over the past 2 years, Planning Board member Peter Finelli in public meetings has repeatedly implored Vassar to consider alternative locations for its Inn and Institute project. A yes vote will also encourage Vassar to properly maintain the Williams buildings. By retaining Williams as faculty housing, Vassar can take advantage of exemptions in the New York State Building Code for existing non-conforming buildings, including special exemptions and waivers for buildings that are designated as historic landmarks. As a result, the cost of maintaining Williams will be far, far less than the grossly exaggerated $17 million Vassar has bandied about. Furthermore, Vassar has an incredible ability to do fundraising, for example, to support the $90 million integrated sciences facility.
Luke, your
and the
time is
Can
up.
you wrap it up, please? I will. The multi-million-dollar renovations of the Alumni House and the President's House. And of course, Vassar has a $1.1 billion endowment. In short, a yes vote will allow the Arlington community to enjoy its quiet, historic neighborhood while also allowing Vassar to build
Luke,
its
your time is
hotel,
up.
conference hall, and restaurant at a more appropriate location. It's insulting for them to say that we're opposed to the
Luke, your
Innan
time is
Institute
up.
project.
I'm sorry,
No
you're on
one
5
here
minutes
is
already.
opposed to the Innan Institute. Therefore, I urge the town board to preserve the historic Williams
Next.
buildings in the beautiful Green Park.
Ellen Stewart, I'm going to apologize because I skipped over you, but you're next. Are you there? Ellen Stewart?
Sorry, I was muted. Hi.
Hi.
I am Ellen Stewart. I'm the Vice President of the Marlborough Historical Society of New York. I serve on the Hoboken Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm an alumna of Vassar. The Hoboken Preservation Commission, in its unanimous recommendation to the town board to landmark both Williams Hall and 159 College Avenue, has rightly recognized the building's architectural and historical significance and their contextual and historied relationship to Alumni House as well as to the contemporaneous residents nearby. Unfortunately, the college administration does not agree. Despite the voices of the neighbors, alumni, faculty members, students, and historic preservationists calling for landmarking the buildings, and despite the numerous reports, studies, and other planning documents commissioned by Vassar that have explicitly and repeatedly recommended the preservation and maintenance of Vassar's historic buildings and open space, the college is fighting the landmarking of Williams and 159 College Avenue. Here are a few of the recommendations that I found when researching the college's planning documents. The authors of the 2005 Historic Preservation Design Manual, prepared for Vassar and funded by a Getty Foundation grant, stated that the purpose of the manual was to help guide the ongoing maintenance of the college's extraordinary inventory of campus architecture and to help protect what we learned from these interesting old buildings. Williams Hall is among the 55 buildings studied. In the 2008 Guiding Principles for Campus Master Planning, the Planning Committee wrote, campus planning and facility development should recognize values shared by members of the Vassar community regarding historic preservation, sustainability, accessibility, and the aesthetic integrity of facilities and outdoor spaces. In the 2015 Vassar Sustainability Plan entitled Building Reuse and Historic Preservation at Vassar, an alumna writes, Vassar needs to take an invested look into building reuse, historic preservation, and adaptive reuse for educational, sustainable, and economic reasons. And finally, from the Green Buildings Guidelines in the current campus master plan, quote, the college must prioritize the renovation and reuse of buildings in ways that recognize their historical importance while ensuring that they support current and future needs. These planning documents recommend preservation, adaptive reuse, and maintenance, yet when it comes to Williams and 159 College Avenue, the administration has not followed its own experts' advice. In fact, in letters to faculty and alumni, the president admitted to long-term neglect of Williams. Neglect of a historic building should never be rewarded with demolition, especially when it comes to Williams Hall and the residents. And just one more sentence. In my opinion, Williams and the residents at 159 College Avenue, with their architectural integrity, extensive and important history, and relationship to the surrounding early 20th century residences, are entirely worthy of landmark status. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Thomas Hill. Thomas, are you there?
So good evening, everyone. I'm Thomas Hill. I live and vote in Ward 6 in Arlington, and I've worked here at Vassar since 1986. I am the art and architecture librarian, and I also teach in the English department. And I also host an interview program on WVKR, which attempts to bridge faculty and community interests. As a librarian and scholar, I have some sense of the effects of cultural memory on communities. This history exists in libraries and museums, of course, but it is also instantiated in the places and buildings that surround us. That buildings can add memory and meaning to a community is at the heart of what historic registries and preservation commissions are about, after all, and why federal, state, and local governments support these efforts. The past communicates with us in the present in mysterious ways, I think, and the traces of history that are all around us remind us of where we have been, and consequently of who we are. And I can't think of any structure that tells more about who we are at Vassar and where we've been than Williams Hall. The best part of our institution, which reflects the progressive spirit of its founder, lives and breathes in this building and its landscape. It's a spirit that the female faculty drew upon in their efforts to have a living space which would allow them to reach their potential as human beings, college teachers,
Thomas.
and citizens. They didn't accomplish this by themselves, formidable bunch though they were, but they were aided by other women, their former students who were now alumni with financial resources. They also enlisted the aid of a sympathetic college president and former colleague, Henry Noble McCracken, a political progressive, an active women's suffragist, and a local historian who wrote the first modern history of Dutchess County. This enlightened assembly hired the best architects and landscape designers in the nation to build a dwelling for female faculty, linked to a home for returning alumni who are themselves channels of institutional history and an essential part of our extended community. The Alumni House, of course, is of a piece with Williams. So in the two buildings, you have, on the one hand, an expression of faculty empowerment, and on the other, of institutional memory, creating common ground, literally common ground. Through their architects, this group made sure they expanded this community beyond the college into Poughkeepsie itself, upon the Alumni House Green and down the channel into the town, tellingly named College Avenue. This assault on Williams seems almost strategically designed to dissolve a spatial and historical bond between faculty and alumni and between the college and the town. To take away this physical space, to take away the physical space denies, to take the one physical space the Poughkeepsie community can and does actually share with the college, knock down this structure would be a tragedy. So I'm asking a town whose history embraces our own history here to step in and save Vassar from itself in these troubled times and grant Williams protected status.
Thank you very much.
We ask everybody, please abide by the 3-minute rule. We have many more people to go here.
Next, I have up Megan Romero. Megan, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I was not expecting to actually speak. I felt so inclined after hearing everything. I am very concerned as somebody that was born and raised on College Avenue that such influential area of this town is going to be lost. It was a big part of my childhood to go down the street and see these historic buildings. And in fact, that influence has influenced me now in my life to actually buy to buy a Victorian house on College, on South Grand, and renovate it and restore it to its former glory. It was built in 1920. All through this process, the last 2 years of renovating this home, which came nowhere near $17 million to restore, and I did have to gut it and redo all the things that these Vassar people were saying that needed to be done. All during this time, I thought back to my childhood and those buildings that are up on the chopping block right now as being a huge influence into why I bought this house and why I decided to stay in this neighborhood. I am honestly kind of disgusted to see pictures of what will be in that green space. You are knocking down historic, beautiful buildings to put up a modern monstrosity that could easily be put somewhere else or is less visual.
Your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up is Agnes Veto. Agnes, Veto. Just give us a minute, don't start the clock till she starts to speak.
There she is.
Hi, Agnes, are you on? I can't hear her. Can you look like you're unmuted, hold on. Agnes? Like, we can't hear you. Is your microphone not working? You're unmuted. Let's try.
Try turning your volume up. I can barely hear you.
Can you turn your volume up maybe or something, Agnes? I see someone running around in the back trying to help her. We'll skip over you, Agnes, unless you want to just wait 1 minute. Do you guys?
Hi, can you hear? Can you hear?
Yep, now we can
Now
hear.
we hear you.
Yay.
Go ahead.
Sorry, but thank you so much. My name is Aggie. These were my servicemen, and I teach in the religion department and the Jewish studies program for the last 13 years. I will be quick.
Kenneth, you need to unmute, or you need to mute yourself, Kenneth. Okay. Sorry, Agnes, go ahead.
Sure. So I just would like to start with the fact that, so I'm a female faculty. I did live a little bit in Williams 13 years ago for a couple of weeks. And I always found that because I'm a female faculty, it would be great to see a house for female faculty, which is much better than Williams has. So I am very much actually in favor of demolishing that block, Williams House. And I think that it's actually an insult to claim that a way to honor female faculty's memory is to keep up that building. I think it was always a cheaper solution, a cheaper housing, Williams House, than the houses where the male professors lived. And maybe it was better than what they had before, but it was never on a par with the buildings that were there for men. So I think that if we want to honor the memory of female faculty, we should not keep Williams House. I would also like to address what a couple of people mentioned earlier, that it's a green area, and that it's important to maintain the green part of that part of the city. I think the plan doesn't contradict that, right? We saw a picture, the model of the Inland Institute. It was a very green area. I think it will help the farmers market and generally the whole neighborhood to have more space where people can go in. When there will be a restaurant and a coffee house there. It will give jobs to the poorer part of Arlington. I think that.
Agnes, your time is up.
Right. Okay. That's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erica Dunn, are you there? Erica Dunn? Call one more time. Erica Dunn. Next after Erica is a Tony, F-R-I-S-C-I-A. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, thank you. So I'm an alum of the college. I've been on the board for a little over 10 years, and I'm in the middle of my third year as chair of the board. So I'd like to speak to you from a board perspective, but let me start by saying my relationship with the town goes beyond Vassar. My wife grew up in Arlington, went to Arlington High School. My father-in-law had a business on Raymond Avenue, was a charter member of the Arlington Rotary, and served there for over 40 years. So my family's commitment to the town is quite extensive. When I became board chair, shortly after President Bradley became president, we talked about goals for the board and for the college. And one of them, because of my feelings and the feelings she brought, was we wanted to strengthen our relationship with the town and with the local community and make Vassar more accessible. So when we talked about the Innan Institute, we wanted it slightly off campus so that it was not only there for Vassar, but it was also there for the local community. There's a restaurant, there's event space, foot traffic for local merchants. And people have talked about this, and you've heard in the past about the economic benefits, so I won't get into details there. Let me talk about Williams. When I started in this role, I toured the 100+ units of faculty housing that Vassar owns. And based on what I learned, the board committed to adequately funding, improving, and maintaining our faculty housing and making it part of our annual asset preservation budget, which hadn't been done in the past. So we've been spending considerably to improve our faculty housing in the last 3 years. Even this year with COVID, we spent over $500,000 in improvements, and next year we'll spend significantly more. So why not Williams? I toured Williams, and other board members did as well. And without getting into details, as others have, on the quality of units or whatever, I don't want to insult anyone. I'd like to focus on what Brian Swartout talked about. The major systems,
Tony,
plumbing, heating.
Here's another.
Yes. Plumbing, heating, electrical systems are original to the building and are deteriorating, and there's a very high risk of failure. The building does not come close to meeting current building codes, and that's what would make any kind of renovation extensive. The need would be extensive, and we could argue about what the estimates to do it would be, but it's in the many millions of dollars. I agree with what Brian talked about, 17 or so million. And
time is up now. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Time is up. Sorry.
I'll finish in 1 second. I can just say, as fiduciaries of the college, there's no way we can justify spending that much money on 20 apartments. We don't have an alternative use for the building. We can adequately support the faculty there with alternative housing. So I just want to close by saying we need to take Williams down to complete this Innan Institute project. And I promise this project will be an asset not only to Vassar, but to the town. Thank you so much for your time.
Next, I have Elisa Kaul. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm Lisa Kaul. Thank you so much. I am a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie. A quick tour of Vassar's campus would reveal Vassar's commitment to both preservation and conservation. And a lot has been said tonight about the historic significance of the Williams, which was constructed in the 1920s. I would like to remind everyone tonight that Williams was created, as many of you know and have spoken about, as residence for women faculty. Unlike men faculty.
Lisa, you're.
Dormitory created women faculty to live in. It's really wonderful, but this reflects the inequity that was prevalent for women faculty at the time. And while this is historically interesting, I think it is certainly at odds with the values that we aspire towards today. By sharp contrast, I think the Innan Institute heralds a new moment in the history of the town of Poughkeepsie. It's going to provide a space for thought leaders in social justice, academia, business, and other areas to gather together from around the world to explore new ideas and collaborate on new ventures. And more importantly, it's going to showcase local talent that exists in the town of Poughkeepsie and in our community. And it's going to bring world-class programming to Poughkeepsie. Imagine the world of possibilities and opportunities that are going to open up for our kids. Arlington School District has declining enrollment at this time. The world of our seniors is going to open up. Somebody's going to come to the farmer's market for a stroll. They can walk in to the inn and the institute, take in a show, go to a talk. More importantly, this is going to be a green building, and it's going to be an example of environmental stewardship, something that we all need to take on as a serious responsibility today as we face the threat of climate change. I think more importantly, It will provide a rare opportunity to introduce a vital economic engine into Arlington and the town of Poughkeepsie. This is particularly critical right now as we struggle with the debilitating effects and economic consequences of COVID-19. I think the Innan Institute will bring much needed jobs to the area, both while it is being constructed and thereafter as local talent is hired to staff the restaurant and run the in-space. I think we're extremely fortunate to have in the Innan Institute both a source of jobs and a space to build local community. This is not just going to be a space, it is going to be a space for building local community. And the alternative site that is proposed would take away another space which builds local community, which are the tennis courts.
Your time is up.
I urge the board to stand in support of Vassar's proposal to build the Innan Institute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a Zachary Donhauser. Zachary, are you here?
Well,
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Whoop.
Can I just quickly say, I just want to reiterate what Felicia had asked before. I'm finding it extremely distracting to really give every speaker my full attention when there's chats popping up. So if everybody can please try to limit it, it would be helpful to our ability to concentrate.
Because it is helpful for me to, when people want to sign up, but the other stuff is very distracting.
Yeah.
So, sorry, folks. Sorry, let me just restart the clock here.
Sorry, Zachary.
Zachary, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to speak from my perspective as a resident of the city of Poughkeepsie. I'm also a professor at Vassar, and I'm a former resident of Williams House. And I'm going to offer my support of Vassar's plans to remove Williams and build an Innan Institute. And my support for Vassar's plans is on three fronts. Number one, as a member of the faculty, I see the tangible benefits to the college and the community in building an intellectual convening space that will facilitate gatherings of faculty from Vassar and other institutions, as well as in facilitating outward-facing community events. Vassar currently lacks adequate physical spaces to host professional academic gatherings, and the addition of the Institute would strengthen our position as a leading liberal arts institution, as well as our ability to host gatherings with the community. Number two, I'm a member of the Poughkeepsie community, and I would welcome the addition of high-quality lodging in Poughkeepsie and specifically in Arlington. If the inn is constructed as planned, I would certainly encourage my family and friends to stay there when they come to visit me, and the proximity to Arlington would allow them to explore the restaurants and shops that Arlington has to offer. And currently, the only option that I see is to send my guests to stay out on Route 9, which is less desirable in my eyes. Thirdly, I'm a former resident of Williams. I lived there for about 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, and I can tell you that my apartment was not a nice place to live. The physical layout and condition of our apartment was not suitable for modern living. It had outdated heating, electrical, and plumbing, and an absurdly awkward layout. It was a railroad-style apartment with two kitchens, one on each end of the unit, and one kitchen. The kitchens were both small, so one kitchen housed only the fridge and the other housed only the stove. So you can imagine what it was like trying to cook dinner while shuttling food back and forth across the apartment. The awkward layout of our apartment was not unique. There was another apartment that was identical to ours. And for example, there were also several apartments in our building that required walking through the bedroom to access the kitchen. So after living there, I think I developed what I believe is an informed opinion that Williams has surpassed its useful life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to spell it. It's Mohtadallawala. Are you there to speak? Hi, how are you?
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Mohtadallawala.
Sorry.
I was elected by...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Thank you. Hello, my name is Mohtadallawala. I was elected by hundreds of students at Vassar to represent student concerns regarding construction on campus. Most of Vassar's commenters have focused on how essential the Innan Institute is. The inn doesn't need to go away. It can be shifted literally right across the street. It would be even closer to the Arlington Business District if it was shifted across the street. Saying that Williams is not unique is a weak argument because so many of Vassar's buildings are copies of one another, like the quad dorm buildings. Vassar can bring dozens of its employees to support their plans, but the fact is that Williams is a building that was loved by its residents for all of its existence. Moreover, President Bradley said that Williams does not serve the function of the college. Then why is Vassar currently planning to put up new faculty houses? Williams has an important continuous function which cannot be diminished by calling it cheap or badly built. Vassar's dorm buildings literally have mice and roaches and have the same burning hot pipes that Mr. Khan described. If those dorm buildings are worth preserving, so is Williams. I would like to mention that Hunt & Hunt, the architects, were the same ones that designed the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and many other already landmark buildings. Let's also talk about how Vassar is diminishing the role of women in a college that was literally founded for women. No woman, no minority has ever had something handed to them. Williams was fought for. That's why it is standing today. If women did not fight for their right to independent housing, they would still be living in ugly, mean dorm rooms. Again, the Innan Institute can be moved right across the street. Vassar can pressure dozens of its employees to come and speak right now, but Vassar's neighbors and students outnumber employees. And you can see that there's more than 100 people in this room today. And we're all here to ensure that the correct decision is made. I urge that the town of Poughkeepsie remembers their commitments to residents and not to Vassar trustees who visit like once or twice a year. If Vassar keeps destroying buildings, there would be nothing to come to the Innan Institute for. I traveled halfway across the world to come to Poughkeepsie for Vassar, and I wouldn't be here if there weren't buildings and histories like Williams. And I really think there is value in preserving Williams. Otherwise, I wouldn't be up at 6 a.m. to talk to you guys right now. I haven't seen one person who isn't affiliated with Vassar talk in support of destroying Williams. I have seen many, many, many community members come in support of Williams. That shows you the value of Williams. The Innan Institute can be literally moved across the street. That is an even better position for the Arlington Neighborhood District. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I have a Marianne Bridgman, I think. There's a few people that have their hands raised, yep, oh, you're just clapping, okay. So I'm looking for Marianne, Biggemann. Is she there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, your turn.
Yeah, hi, thank you. My name is Marianne Biggemann. I'm the Dean of Strategic Planning and Academic Resources at Vassar. And I just wanted to comment that there's been many emotional comments made on the opposition side to this project. And although we could refute many of those comments here and now, I don't really believe it's the right time to do that for the board. And just want to say that we're happy to answer any questions and refute falsehoods point by point if those questions come to us from the board now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Suzanne Gilbert, you're next. Are you there? Suzanne Gilbert? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, there's a Charlie. Sorry, Suzanne.
That's okay.
Charlie was first.
Yes, I thought y'all might appreciate hearing from somebody without a PhD and whose backyard is not of concern in this project. I feel the first presenter really failed to make a case for architectural uniqueness or famous events or the like, and didn't feel that there was really any objective presentation there, from the Vassar graduate from Hoboken. I think that the idea that we could benefit from this project at an alternate site is a falsehood, given what I think I heard, that the fundraising is tied to this site. And I'm sure it won't be easy for the university to go and raise those kinds of funds all over again. And so I think that a vote by the town board to preserve this cute but insignificant structure will be a vote against a project that will bring great activity to the business district. Lastly, it seems to me that the university is a testament to women's progress itself, and now to the progress and advancement of so many other underrepresented groups, like the person who spoke a moment ago. And I certainly hope we won't tie their hands by forcing them to maintain this structure, and that the board will vote against preserving this apartment building.
Thank you.
Now Suzanne Gilbert.
So hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so first I want to say I have a neurological condition which affects my speech, so please be patient. I don't have a formal presentation, but I would like to convey some very strong beliefs about the impact that demolishing Williams will have for Vassar, for the immediate neighbors, and for the outlying neighbors. I live in the city of Poughkeepsie in an 1859 historic home and have for the past 20 years. I know firsthand what it means to be a steward to this incredible place. I know that I benefit as the resident here, but I also know that my community here on Garfield benefits. I know that tourists come in on their cars driving slowly by my porch and wave and look at the building, and they benefit. I also lived in Williams in 169 on the first floor, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago or more, and I enjoyed it very much. The sense of place, from the architecture to the green space, is of value. And I also want to say, I have followed the process for the site review of the proposed new construction, and it is atrocious. Big box, aesthetically bankrupt, which just desecrates a view shed for the people who have invested in that neighborhood, in a community. I urge anyone who has not walked the community, bring a dog, don't bring a dog, but walk the community, stand in front of the homes that are facing what is being proposed, and imagine seeing an entire blockage of the sky. The old trees will be gone. No one has even mentioned, I also committed years of professional life to working for Scenic Hudson. So I come from many different perspectives on this, but the bottom line is, if I can be a steward of a historic place, surely Vassar College, with all of its resources, can do the same. And to complain about the deterioration of Williams after having allowed it, it just seems wrong. And Vassar is powerful financially and in other ways. So to say that you've worked so hard to get these
Suzanne,
funds
your time is up.
from benefactors and you have to give it back, because there's much grant money. There is so much money. This should not
Suzanne, your
be
time is up.
solely about money. And the last thing I would like to say is, we have a community, an economic community, the Arlington Business District. We have coffee shops. We have restaurants. There are other inns. There are other buildings.
Suzanne.
There are other
Thank you.
places
Suzanne.
that people care about. So Vassar brags about being connected to the community and not just an island within itself.
Suzanne,
This
your
is a
time is up.
prime chance to show that.
Thank you.
So landmark this great,
Thank you, Suzanne. Your
great
time is up.
place.
Thank you. Next up is Jeff Seidman. Are you there? Jeff, Seidman?
Right, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, we're going to start the timer. Go ahead.
Member at Vassar, but I'm speaking more as a homeowner in Ward 6. I want to urge the town to reject the motion for historical preservation. And the reason is, so I'm a homeowner, as I said. I have a private house, and there are laws that say exactly what I may not do on my property. There are codes and there are laws, and those put limits. But within those limits, I think it's important that I'm able to figure out for myself how best to use my property, as long as I obey the law. The statute, the historical preservation statute, which President Bradley laid out, has a clear literal meaning. The words historical significance mean all sorts of things in ordinary conversation or even in scholarship. But in the meaning of the statute that the statute gives to them, they don't mean built by an important architect. They don't mean that the person who donated the money to give the building is historically important. They don't mean that it's connected in indirect ways to historically important persons. And they certainly don't mean that the building is pretty to walk around and that the neighbors like it, much as that might be true. And so what I feel like I'm hearing tonight is an attempt to hijack a statute which has a clear literal meaning and to use it to tell a property owner that they cannot figure out how best to use their property, even when the statute really doesn't bear on the situation at hand. So in terms of the process of second guessing where the college should put the inn, everyone says they're for the Inn and Institute, but it should be over in another place. So the college engaged in a lengthy planning process and debated the pros and cons of various sites and settled on this as the overwhelming choice. The faculty, right? We have a faculty that's composed of historians and art historians and architectural theorists. The faculty debated this. The decision didn't rest with them, but they debated it. And we're not unanimous because of course we never are, but the overwhelming majority of the faculty supported building the Inn and Institute on the present location under consideration now, even though it meant taking down Williams, knowing full well what it meant. The faculty, the Board of Trustees, many other, and the college in consultation with the town and with the Arlington Business District has gone through a long process in settling on this site. To come in and second guess that process using a statute that simply doesn't apply, it seems to me like people are saying, we like
Jeff,
this.
time is up, so sorry.
Okay, my time is up.
Thank you for
Thank
speaking.
you.
Next, I have an Elliot, S-C-H-R-E-I-B-E-R, Schreiber.
Hi, good evening. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Hi, I'm a faculty member at Vassar, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak briefly. And I first of all wanted to recognize the fact that the construction of the Inn and Institute on the site proposed by Vassar would have different and indeed perhaps disproportionate impacts for different people. So if you were a resident of Williams and if you were happy with your home, I can certainly understand your opposition to this proposal. But I also think it's important to weigh what is gained against what is lost. And I think that on balance, the gain is greater than the loss. So most importantly, I think that the way that the Inn and Institute and Alumna House would complement each other, each supporting the mission of the other, is a really important consideration, that they would constitute a kind of complex together. And also, the Institute for the Liberal Arts is conceived of, as we've heard, as Vassar's public classroom, a space in which Vassar would interface with the local community and the wider world. And my feeling is, what better place for it than directly beside a public square? I also think it's important to recognize that if the Inn and Institute were placed across the street, as has been suggested, there would also be significant impacts, gains as well as losses. So my family and I happen to live as house fellows or dorm parents in the student dormitory Jocelyn House, directly adjacent to the parcel of land that has been suggested as an alternative. And this field is heavily used by students, particularly for sports like ultimate frisbee. It's also used by residents of the town and the city who walk their dogs and picnic here, as they do on the Alumna House lawn. This is not the main reason why I support the construction of the Inn and Institute at the location proposed by Vassar. I just want to point out that there are always losses as well as gains with any construction project, particularly in an urban community, and that we need to weigh what is gained against what is lost. Again, I feel that far more would be gained than lost if the Inn and Institute were to be built on the site proposed by Vassar. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have a Jeannie Colabello. I don't know. Sorry.
Close. Jenny Colabella.
Okay.
I work in Poughkeepsie. We heard tonight that the buildings under consideration are not worth keeping. I strongly disagree with that. I work in Poughkeepsie and I drive by Williams every day. Williams represents an important change in the lives and the careers of professional women, which makes the buildings historically significant. If Williams is given historical designation, then an institute can still be built. Some commenters seem to be presenting the issue as a choice, right? It's either one or the other, the institute or Williams, but there's no reason we can't have both. I personally would love to see an institute, but I don't think our history has to be destroyed for that to happen. So I strongly encourage the board to vote in favor of the preservation of Williams Hall and the surrounding green. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I don't have any other names on my list, so I'm going to ask anybody that has not spoken at all tonight if you'd like to speak.
My name is on the list?
Oh, I thought you spoke in the beginning, but go ahead.
No, he didn't.
Okay, Neil, you can come up.
Thank you.
And let me look at Doreen, you'll be next, sorry.
Excuse me, you said?
I was speaking to somebody. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll try to be brief. I appreciate you taking the time for this. I just want us to reject a kind of false binary here. No one is against the Innan Institute, and this isn't about the Innan Institute. It's about preserving the character of a neighborhood, which is not just a building. I'm not going to get deep in the weeds about the quality of the roof or the wiring. The building was set into a certain structure on a certain street with the green behind it, and it complements the Alumni House. We're asking you to preserve a neighborhood that's an important part of the town of Poughkeepsie, and the many, many residents of the town of Poughkeepsie want the neighborhood preserved. We're not against the Innan Institute. The green is a community center, and we want that green preserved along with the beautiful buildings that complement it, and it's Vassar that has made that a community center. It's a little ironic to hear them talking about the Innan Institute in that location as outreach to the community when so many hundreds of community members have said, can we work to find a win-win solution that preserves our neighborhood and gets you what you want and brings benefit to the business district and brings benefit to the college. You, the town board, are leaders who can help forge that solution that's a win-win for everybody. And I really urge you to do that, and I think preserving Williams and the town green is a big part of that. I don't want to get drawn into a false binary between Vassar College and the town of Poughkeepsie. Vassar College is a part of the town of Poughkeepsie. The Poughkeepsie is part of Vassar College. We are one and the same. We're one community, and it's your jobs as leaders to help preserve what is most important and guide us all into win-win solutions for the greatest good for the greatest number. And to that end, I would say that there are certainly alternate locations, but one of the things I would urge you to reject is this thinking that we've heard a little bit of, which is, well, this is the only place it can go and it's already paid for and there's all these jobs and there's all this money and we'd have to give the money back. That's kind of a binary thinking that should be transcended by the leadership of the community before whom I stand to help us achieve something for the good of all, which I certainly think is possible. Lastly, I would say that investing in the green and the building is really investing in not just the business district, and not just Vassar College, and not just the town of Poughkeepsie, but investing in the concept of a neighborhood which so many of us have staked our lives and built our families in, and which can be a characteristic part of the town of Poughkeepsie as a whole, which is your job to preserve, defend, and uphold. I think we can all work together on this. I think we want green space. That's really an important part of the town of Poughkeepsie plan. I think we want something we can all be proud of together, Vassar, the town, the residents, the wider community, and I urge this board to take the steps that will lead us in that direction to a win-win solution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doreen, I see that you had your hand raised. It's your turn to speak.
All right, thank you. I'd just like to address several comments that were made here tonight. It has been said that there isn't any other hotels in the area. Should be noted that the former Arthur S. Mace School Building, located at 25 Raymond Avenue, is slated to become a complex that includes a hotel. And it's interesting to note that that building was also eligible for inclusion in the state and national registry of historic places. And in the end, that will end up being demolished. Likely, as I hate to say it, it seems that the same thing that Williams is heading for, unfortunately. Also, someone talked about bringing jobs to the community. Well, on December 11th of 2019, I was in attendance at the Dutchess County IDA meeting, Industrial Development Agency meeting. And at that meeting, Brian Swarthout was talking about job creation and was asked how much these jobs would pay. The hourly rate for employees was between $11 and $13 an hour. Well, that's not even a minimum, what's considered to be a living wage. So those are not the kind of jobs I think we're looking for in the community. Now, the other thing is we'll see how this benefits the public. For 20 years, I've been attending board meetings, and I hear developers promise the world. And unfortunately, plans change after they get their approval. So we'll see what happens. And about the only good thing I can say about this is that Vassar College has withdrawn the request for a pilot program. They were at that IDA meeting. They asked for a payment in lieu of taxes, so they didn't have to pay their full taxes. They were asking for sales tax abatement, mortgage tax, recording tax abatement. So now they've withdrawn that request. But the interesting thing was at that meeting, it was stated that Vassar could not go ahead with the project unless they got these tax abatements. And for whatever reason, Vassar has withdrawn that request, and they're still going ahead with this. So again, that makes me question some of the things that have been said here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Doreen.
I don't have anybody else on my list, so I'm going to ask if anybody else wants to speak, to raise your hand.
May I ask a question?
You already spoke.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, if it's a quick question.
So I spoke tonight as the coordinator of the Arlington Neighborhood Association, but I would like to speak as a resident of the town of Poughkeepsie, as a homeowner in the town of Poughkeepsie.
Everybody gets one chance to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I left that out.
Yeah, sorry about that. Is there anybody else that hasn't spoken tonight? Hold on a minute, Philip. Is it Philip?
Rally.
Philip, do you want to speak about Vassar project? Can you unmute?
Muted.
We're trying to unmute you. Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Philip.
I'm concerned that when Vassar does something off the beaten path, that a residential area will become a commercial area. For sure, by having a place where people can stay, there's going to be a need for parking. There's going to be a need for people to park their cars where they work. And there's not anywhere near enough land for parking if they do it in the area that they're talking about now. If you go past during the daytime, you will see that there's limited parking, and that's not because students have cars there, it's because people want to go to the working area, the Arlington stores. Making that district longer and having people search harder for parking places, I think, is not the right thing, and the town has a responsibility to make sure that there's more than adequate parking, not just for the people who are going to shop, but the people who are going to work there. So my concern is, if there is any kind of construction, that the town should make sure that there is adequate parking for the people who are going to shop and work and be there throughout the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Your name?
think I'm almost the last one. I know everybody's really excited about that point in the meeting.
What's your name?
It's Amanita Duga Carroll, and I serve as Vice President of Communications at Vassar. And as Marianne Begemon said, there were a few things, many things that were brought up that we think are factually incorrect. So we're happy to answer questions about that. You can contact any of us. We don't want to sit here and refute everything point by point. But one thing that was brought up, we thought really needed to be said, which is that, in fact, I think someone took over the screen share to question the tax payments. And we just want to make clear that Vassar has chosen to put the Institute and Inn on the tax rolls. So, you know, we're not seeking for tax relief. So we thought that was a really important point to correct. So that's it.
Thank you. Felicia, anybody else?
I think that's it. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? I think that's it.
Nope.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close public hearing?
Second.
Don't move. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Board will not be voting on this tonight. We're going to take back all the information that we received from both sides, the neighborhood association, the neighbors, the residents, the business owners in the Arlington area and throughout the area, and going through the pile of letters that we've all received the last couple days. So the town board members will go through all that information, and then at a further date, we will come out with a conclusion of what we think and make our decision then. I don't think, my opinion, and I don't think it's the board's opinion, that anybody is in the mindset to make a decision tonight because of the amount of information that was fed to us. I don't think there's any other statements to make along that line. No? Thank everybody for coming out. Thanks everybody for their opinion. And have a great night as far as the Vassar historic designation went. And now I'd like to make a motion to open the second public hearing.
Second.
Second public hearing is a moratorium on gasoline filling stations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody here to discuss the gasoline filling station?
All right, so I have Linda Mack was the first one on my list.
Okay, and again, we ask everybody to please keep their comments to 3 minutes. Go ahead, Linda Mack, if you're...
Good.
Linda, are you there?
Hello, my name is Linda Mack, and I just want to tell the town board, I very much appreciate your considering having a gas station moratorium in the town of Poughkeepsie, because way too many are trying to be developed in residential areas, and I definitely support it. You have to go back and look at your laws and make sure you adhere to them. And again, I am very much in support, and I thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Linda.
Next, I have Troy Lip. I think that's how you say it.
Yep.
Hi, Troy.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Troy Lip. I'm litigation counsel with Cuddy and Fader. I'd first like to thank this board for being here this evening and giving me the opportunity to provide comment on behalf of my client, Stewart. The moratorium at issue is not legally warranted. There are strict legal standards for when a town may enact a moratorium. There must be a dire necessity, and the moratorium must be reasonably calculated to alleviate or prevent a crisis condition. Neither prerequisite is met here. First, the notion that a moratorium is needed because of potential oversaturation of gas stations refutes this board's position that there's a dire need or emergency situation requiring enactment of a moratorium. Oversaturation of gas stations simply is not an emergency. Furthermore, the stated concern about potential impacts to community character, the local transportation network, and or general health and safety of the community also do not exhibit an emergency or crisis sufficient to warrant imposing a moratorium here. Every gas station application goes through a site-specific review, and the planning board issues a secret determination on these issues. Stewart has already received 2 negative declarations. Thus, there is no emergency condition created by allowing Stewart's application to proceed under the town's existing procedures. My second point is that it's apparent that this moratorium is in response to public outcry, including the personal opposition towards Stewart's by a town board member. New York's highest court has specifically made the point that a town may not invoke a moratorium solely as a pretext to appease community opposition. Yet, Stewart's is the only pending application for a gasoline filling station, and as such, will be the only entity impacted by this moratorium. That is not a coincidence here. The moratorium was proposed after 16 months of review and only after Mr. Krakauer, who had earlier opposed Stewart's application before the ZBA, was appointed to this board. Mr. Krakauer even made statements on the record at the November 4th town board meeting regarding the location of Stewart's proposed station being in his front yard. In fact, it was acknowledged out loud at the November 13th special meeting that the moratorium is being put forth specifically in response to Stewart's. Additionally, the town supervisor also submitted opposition to Stewart's application before the ZBA, evidencing his apparent endorsement of small businesses over other businesses. The law is clear that local governments cannot regulate business competition, which is what this board appears to be doing by this moratorium. Supervisor Baisley and Member Krakauer have already publicly declared their opposition to Stewart's application and should seriously consider recusing themselves from consideration of the moratorium. My third point is that the town has an active comprehensive review committee that is working to update the town's comprehensive plan. And there's no reason why this particular zone change should not be part of that process as applied to all other types of land uses. No moratoria or zoning changes should be considered until the review committee process is complete. In conclusion, Stewart's has already completed. If I could just finish. Yep. The conclusion is that Stewart's has already completed a 16-month site-specific review process and should be exempt from the moratorium as the project doesn't cause any of the impacts articulated by the moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Troy. Next, I have Peter Mack.
Hi, good evening. Peter Mack from 206 Over Rocker Road. Want to speak in favor of the moratorium. First of all, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can, Peter.
Okay, great. All right. Just going back in time, at the turn of the century, women used to paint dials of watches with radium. And people argued, radium is safe, there's no problem, until women's jaws started falling off and they started dying of cancer. Fast forward a little later in the 40s, people started saying, hey, asbestos, it's a great material. We can use it to insulate pipes. It's fireproof. It's great. There's nothing wrong with it. Look where that's gotten us. We know that gas stations produce hazardous materials like toluene, xylene, and benzene. A recent study in Tel Aviv showed that even with current and technological vapor recovery systems, gas fumes are still found 80 meters or 240 feet away from a gas station. That's why we're trying to impose a moratorium, because gas stations and their hazardous materials do not mix with residents. Indian Point is being closed down because of environmental concerns. Why are we taking a step backwards today with the town of Poughkeepsie to say that we can go ahead and put these gas stations closer and closer to residences? It doesn't make sense. That's all I have to say. I strongly recommend we impose a moratorium, because how much longer down the road are we going to find out that, hey, gas stations and people are now suffering ill effects from living next to them? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. Somebody made a comment about this, but he didn't say whether he wanted to speak. Is there a Johnny V? Okay, next I had an iPhone with a raised hand. Did you want to make a comment about this moratorium?
Yes, I would.
And your name, sir?
David Robinson.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I live at 12 Jean Drive. You should have received nearly 200 signatures for this moratorium we emailed you.
Yes, I have that.
You got it? Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Okay. I not only support a moratorium, but I urge you to fix the zone in this town so future gas stations are not so close to our homes. We don't need to become gas station alley. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I don't have anybody else that's raising their hand or that,
Ken?
Kenny Stanger? Sorry, I didn't look over that way.
No, that's fine. Can I take this off?
Yes. So you're over there, it's fine.
Thank you. So,
Do you have others too?
my name's Kenneth M. Stanger. I think most of you, we may have met in other contexts. I'm not here to tell you the law says you can't do what you want. I'm not here to argue the merits of a moratorium or not. I don't live in this town. But I am here just simply to tell you the story of an application that's already been approved that may or may not be affected by your moratorium, and that's the Malabar application. And I represent the Malabar application. And in 2015, and through 2015 and 2016, Malabar came through the Planning Board, through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and received approvals for variances, and received approvals for site plan, and received approvals for special use permit. Now, during that process, the Planning Board and the ZBA made several findings of fact in granting those approvals. The ZBA very specifically said that in the board's opinion, the proposed site plan includes adequate means of, the proposed project is consistent with the type and intensity of non-residential uses located in proximity to the site, and the project design would minimize and avoid any disruption to the quiet enjoyment of nearby residential and non-residential properties. The Planning Board, in making its approval, and I'm only quoting part of their approvals, the project calls to the development of new structures in a manner that is protective of the historic, scenic, and environmental characters of the town, and the project conforms to the town's planning goals and objectives as expressed in its town plan. The use would be in harmony with the general zoning plan and would not adversely affect the neighborhood. The Planning Board, after circulating to all potentially interested parties to serve as lead agency, including this town board, made a negative declaration for this project, and in so doing, the negative declaration made a number of factual findings. The project as proposed would be consistent with current zoning and land use regulations. The project would not have a significant adverse effect on local community services such as police and fire protection, public recreation, and schools. The project would have no significant adverse impact on traffic. We represented Malabar during that process, and we were very pleased with the hard work that we put in with the town, with the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals to get to a place where findings of fact were made by the board as part of the process, and then we received the approvals. Before we could put a shovel in the ground, we were sued. So was the town. And I think Mr. Nelson can confirm, and Mr. Krakauer as well, anyone who practices law knows that there's no such thing as a rapid resolution in the judicial system, particularly when it's in Article 78.
Time is up, unfortunately.
I know it's more than 3 minutes, but the point I wanted to make is this. We had litigation for 3 years. The town was with us every step of the way, and we won the litigation. The application, unfortunately, expired because there's no clear mechanism in the state law or the Poughkeepsie town law to extend the time frame of the approvals during the period of litigation. So rather than go to court and get an order or attempt to get an order saying that our approvals didn't expire, we went back to the Planning Board. We went back to the Zoning Board. And we're presently before them now. And we're there for a reinstatement. And there are two things there. If the Planning Board or the Zoning Board, in the context of their review, find a substantive factor that has changed since when the approval was made and today, then they will not be able to reinstate the application. They'll have to treat it as a new application. But if they don't make that finding, then we can be, and should be as a matter of law, our approvals will be reinstated. I make this everyone here has wanted to make a speech. I don't want to do that. I do want to just provide you with the facts of this unique circumstance. When I
Ken,
read
can you
your
wrap it up,
code,
though?
when I read your code, I couldn't tell if you're, I'm sorry, when I read the proposed moratorium, I couldn't say for sure whether it applied to an application that had been approved, that had fought the judicial fight, and now sought reinstatement because of.
The time is up, unfortunately, Ken, but I do have the letters that I got from you,
All right.
which I will put into the record.
I wanted to thank you. I also just wanted to put these letters, hard copies of those letters into
I
the
have
record.
hard copies.
Oh, you do?
Yep, I stamped them in.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. There's two, correct?
Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. Does anybody else have
It's a pleasure waiting.
I have-
Interesting watching you guys work. I know more about architecture in Vassar than I started out with today. Thank you.
I have some hands raised and the chat, so let me just hold on one second. Okay, so I think we're going to go with the hands raised first, because they were first. And I'm not going to go in any particular order. I'm just going to go with Jim, and you have to keep it to 3 minutes. Jim G.
Good evening. My name is Jim Greaves. I live at 215 Over Rocker Road. I'd like to thank the town board and the town attorney for their efforts in drafting this moratorium. One of the primary functions of government, whether federal, state, or local, is looking out for the public safety and health of its citizens. Studies show building motor vehicle service facilities close to residential properties are a threat to the residents, especially the children's health, and many are known to be nuisance properties. Zoning code 21090E states no facility shall be located within 500 foot of any property developed for residential use which is located in residential district. Seems pretty cut and dry, but we need to get some teeth behind this law, whether it's a specific requirement for a use variance, taking any legal arguments out of what's needed to bypass this code, or to move this code out of the zoning code and into the town code, so a variance cannot be granted to build motor vehicle service facilities near a residential district. We need this moratorium to see how we can proceed as a community. Most of the major motor vehicle and motorcycle manufacturers have started retooling their lines to include more electric and hybrid vehicles. It is not very far off in the future where the need for gasoline dispensing facilities will be waning. There is already an overabundance of motor vehicle service facilities in the town, and now is the time to get a handle on the construction of any more before one ends up on every available lot. I fully support the moratorium as written and hope the town board does as well. Again, I want to thank you all for the time and effort you put into drawing up this local law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Linda Wright. Linda, are you there?
She's muted right now.
Hold on one second.
I think you're off.
Can you hear me?
Now we can, yep. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Linda Wright. I live at 217 Over Aqua Road. I fully support the town moratorium. I think this will be a great thing going forward. And there's a lot of gas stations. Well,
Linda, are you there?
I'm here.
Go ahead, Linda.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Okay, I fully support the town moratorium on gasoline filling stations. There are a lot of gas stations all around the town of Poughkeepsie, and I think by doing the moratorium, that would be great. I was unaware of, it's not just gas stations that are out there, but there's other locations which are gasoline filling stations. And by you doing the moratorium, the town would see how many gas stations there are, and you can look at, go back and see how many there is and what areas they're located in, and if it's within the town laws that have been set up previously. And I thank you very much for your time and effort on working on the moratorium.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Next, I have EKO LLE.
That's Eric Cole, thank you. I'm an attorney from Keenan Bean. I represent Amolk Inc. We're in support of the moratorium, as I think many of you know. I listened to Stewart's attorney state this board has no authority to impose a moratorium. I think they're mistaking the law. The courts have long held the municipality has the absolute discretion to impose a moratorium to preserve the status quo. The draft local law sets forth in detail the reasons behind the town board concerns and the reasons for the moratorium. The courts don't require an emergency. Of course, Stewart's wants an exemption, but that would be like closing the barn after letting the horse out. The town has listed valid reasons for the moratorium and the need to preserve the status quo while it examines the zoning ordinance, whether the zoning ordinance needs to be changed. A court will uphold this moratorium 7 days to Sunday. Then with Malabar's attorney, Mr. Stanger, I think they're neglecting to mention that they let its approvals lapse. They're not valid. He won a court decision, but he lost the approvals. His client also neglected to obtain several critical variances, including one that requires the gas station to be on 2 acres. 5 years later, the neighborhood has changed, with more traffic and residential units. Malabar's attorney forgets that his client is back before the boards. Of course the moratorium applies to Malabar. It cannot be treated differently than other applicants. That would be unlawful. Now, Malabar's attorney may not be sure if the moratorium covers Malabar. Now we have two horses out of the barn. There's no doubt this covers both stations. These 2 stations are the very reason the moratorium was needed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have somebody, A.L. Hobb on an iPhone or something? A.L. Hobb, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
What's your name, hon?
Amy Hobson Aguirre. I live at 208 Over Rocker Road in Poughkeepsie.
What's
and
the
I just
address?
also wanna-
208.
I'm sorry?
Nothing, hon, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, no, I was just going to say I'm in favor of a moratorium on all gas stations in the town of Poughkeepsie. And we really just don't need any more gas stations in the town. And that's all I really wanted to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Doreen?
Hi, this is Doreen. Yes, listening to Attorney Lip takes me back to about 2006 when the town was enacting a moratorium on land use. And I was on the town's Conservation Advisory Commission at the time. And how many times did we hear attorneys saying that it just wasn't needed? Then when the moratorium was extended, there were even attorneys trying to say, well, it was a taking, even though they weren't denied entire use of their property. So this just reminds me of what happened back then. And you know, the moratorium went on, and eventually it ended. There were no issues, no lawsuits that against the town that were won. So to me, that, you know, that's nothing more than a scare tactic. Anyway, I also want to speak, you know, in favor of, and I have to say that, you know, I was at all the town board meetings where the town board carefully considered whether 500 feet was even enough, whether it should have been, you know, 1,000 feet. They acted in accordance with what they believed was the best interest of the residents. And unfortunately, a lot of times we see little by little, residents' rights get chipped away. There's encroachment into residential areas by commercial properties. And you know, people make an investment in their property and they expect to have some of the same rights that, you know, when they bought their property. So again, I'm in favor of the moratorium, and you know, like I said, to me, this just when you hear threats from some of the attorneys, it's baseless in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. I have, I believe Chuck Marshall wanted to speak in the chat. I saw you there, Chuck.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Marshall from Stewart's. We own and operate 3 other convenience stores with gasoline filling in the town of Poughkeepsie. We entered into an agreement with Umberto through MCRJ Realty in the spring of 2019. He's owned the business and land since, you know, approximately 1982, and he had closed before the global pandemic. In our over 14 months of review, Stewart's has been before both the Planning Board and Zoning Board, including both public hearings at both boards. Through a coordinated review, a negative declaration was achieved and subsequently reaffirmed by the Planning Board. And as we understand it, between correspondence with town staff, we are on the only pending application. In our agreement with Umberto, we entered into it under the understanding that highway business allows gasoline fueling with certain spatial considerations. And now this legislation will amend the agreement between Stewart's and Umberto, who purchased the property in 1982, and like most of us was intending on capitalizing on the property's appreciation for his retirement, and instead finds himself having sold his home to subsidize the lack of income from the property. As an essential business during the COVID-19 pandemic, the importance of small-scale shopping and motor vehicle fueling should be recognized, and ultimately the decision rests with you. But if you can imagine being a landowner, to have someone come in after 14 months and tell you couldn't sell your land, I think problematic. So I appreciate the board's consideration of the application, but don't necessarily agree with its intent.
Thank you.
Hold on 1 minute. I don't think that there's anybody else that would like to speak. If so, could you please raise your hand if you've not spoken?
Get anybody else, please?
I don't see anybody else.
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, prior to reading the resolution, any of the board members want to make any comments?
Yeah, I just want to clear something up. The Stewart's project is in my ward, but this is not just about the 5th Ward. It's about it's about the entire town of Poughkeepsie. Stewart's is not the only gas station project, I believe, that's in front of the town. And so the reference that this was just about Stewart's, I don't believe is correct. And then a statement that I made, I think at the November 4th board meeting, which I made a statement regarding this topic in general. I think it was taken out of context, misunderstood, or just misrepresented. Stewart's is not in my front yard. It's not even close to my front yard or my backyard. It's in my ward. The proposed project is in my ward. And it would have impacts on the people that I represent as a 5th Ward councilman, but it's not something that is literally or figuratively in my front yard. I made a comment off the cuff, and I guess it needs to be corrected because it was misunderstood, like I said, misunderstood or taken out of context. So I think that it's important for the town to pause and review this issue, and the town board to take a good look at it. I know I'm committed to working through this expeditiously, and I'm going to take a completely objective approach to it, and take a look at it and see what myself and the rest of the board believes makes sense. And hope to be able to complete the process in a timely manner and try to work through it in the 90 days that we've allotted for it. So again, I'm going to look at it open-minded, be objective, and hopefully we get this thing worked through fairly quickly so that we're not having a long-term impact on any projects that are either current or proposed.
I just have a small comment I'd like to make. As your town supervisor, I am elected by all the residents of the town to represent all the residents of the town, whether small business owners, individual residents, big business owners that live in the town. It's our job to represent them all equally and treat them all the same way. Citizens from different wards, and they all know who they are, have reached out over the last couple of months and asked comments, is there something we could do about a moratorium? And most of my comments back to them were, this is over the last 2-3 months, were we're looking at different things to do. We weren't quite sure what we could do and where we're going to go, and that's how we came about a moratorium. Put a small pause on where we stand, go back, study the facts, and decide if something needs to be done, and if so, what are we able to possibly do? There is no stone, there's no direction. We are actually taking a pause to see where we go on this step forward. And in the town, it is not just Stewart's, which is located on Route 9, Stewart's has they have 4 locations in the town currently. They are not the only one. Malamar out here, who we've been in front of the board over the years, and we've been in court with for many years. There's also a proposed project on the end of Innes Avenue, along with other projects that have come and called in to address this. It's not about one project, it's possibly 3 or 4 different projects, and it could bring a proliferation of gas stations. So we just want to take one step back, address all the issues, and see what we can do to make sure we make the right decisions. There is no decision made as of yet. We were going to pause, put this moratorium in place, and see if we can come up with the best possible answer. And as of now, there is no answer, so we are seriously looking into this with the board and see what we can possibly do going forward that will be equal and fair to everybody in the town. That's all I got to say. Anybody else got anything else to say? If not, Jeff, do you want to read it?
Yep. Being enacted that the town board of Town of Poughkeepsie pursuant to a public hearing held on the 2nd day of December 2020, 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 Over Rocker Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, does hereby adopt a local law, the temporary townwide moratorium on development of motor vehicle service facilities that includes a gasoline filling station or sell gasoline in the town of Poughkeepsie, which local law is attached hereto and incorporated herein, and the town board does hereby waive a verbatim reading of said local law and does direct that said local law be spread across the record as if it, in fact, had been read verbatim. And whereas the town board has previously declared this local law to be a type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act and its implementing regulation 6 NYCR Part 617 5C 36 SECRA requiring no environmental review. And whereas by memorandum of November 23rd, 2020, the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board has advised that it takes no position regarding the adoption of the proposed moratorium. Whereas a written recommendation dated November 20th, 2020 was received from Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development, stating that the proposed local law was a matter of local concern. And whereas the town clerk has notified the clerks of the surrounding municipalities of the public hearing pursuant to GM L239NN, and whereas the legal notice of the public hearing was posted on November 13th, 2020, and published in the Poughkeepsie Journal on November 18th, 2020, now therefore be it further enacted, the local law shall take effect immediately upon filing. Secretary of State, so move.
Second. We got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That brings us to the end of our public hearings. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for any item on the agenda.
Second.
So moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody who'd like to make a comment on any item that is on the agenda for tonight?
Okay, this is Doreen. Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Go right ahead, Doreen.
Okay, thanks. So agenda item number 4, the agreement for the asbestos evaluation. I was just wondering if there was any maximum amount for that. I see that in the letter from PVE, it said that there was a subtotal of $6,675, but the resolution doesn't have any amount in it. So I was wondering if you were setting a maximum amount of money that could be spent on this.
Doreen, we had it done last year and it cost us just over $6,000. We were doing air quality testing over there, and we did one early in the year, and then we moved and we did a couple more spaces later on in the year. So we have to really look as when we get in there if we need a second or a third boring to see where we go. So it shouldn't cost more than $7,000 tops.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Motion to resume the rules?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Be resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby appoint Eric Lamery as a temporary full-time police assistant at the town of Poughkeepsie Police Department on a temporary basis due to leaves of absences not to exceed 90 days starting January 4th, 2021. So moved.
Second. Got a motion, a second. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Bill?
Resolution 4, be it resolved that the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Partridge Venture Engineering, PC, PVE, that's the initials, to perform periodic asbestos air sampling and analytical services at the town of Poughkeepsie Police Department in substantially the form annexed, and said PVE is authorized to perform these services on receipt by the town of proof of insurance coverage satisfactory to the town attorney, for the attorney for the town. And be it further resolved that testing and analysis work is a type 2 action requiring no sticker review. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions on this? The only comment I want to make is this third study was to be done when it gets colder and the building's tighter and closed up. So we'll be waiting until we get a good period of cold weather and the heat's been on to make sure we get a good quality reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept with regret the resignation of Taryn Riley, personnel administrator with the town of Poughkeepsie Water Department, effective December 11th, 2020. So
Jess,
moved.
I just want to say that that resolution was amended, and I did email it out to everybody, so the amended version does say at the town of Poughkeepsie. It doesn't say
And
water
not water
department.
department?
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I stumbled over that.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know who seconded, if anybody.
Motion, we got a second?
Second.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I just want to wish Taryn, all the luck in the world moving on. She was an asset to the town. She came into town and she helped us get our personnel department up and running again. And payroll, she's done a phenomenal job, and she's really moved the department forward in the right direction, making sure we met all our requirements. So I wish her the best of luck and thanks for everything she's done.
If we don't get paid, I can call her, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're past that. Okay, Number 6.
Be resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby reappoint Andrea Balua to the Board of Assessment Review through September 30th, 2025. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And just to let people know, we are still looking for spots on the Board of Assessment Review. So anybody out there with any building, real estate knowledge, if they would be interested in that position, feel free to call my office and we can discuss possibly being put on that review board.
I'm sorry, I missed who seconded that.
Me.
Oh, I thought you read it.
Oh, I read it. You're right.
Who
You
seconded
read
it?
it? Who seconded it?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, it's long.
Yeah, it's hard to not see the mouth moving with mask.
Okay. Be it resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept the attendance for Peter Fanuelli, Ben Pagnelli, and Anthony Aquadia for a 2-hour educational session on floodplain regulation for local review boards presented by Dutchess County Planning Federations, copies of which are attached. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any questions on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby acknowledge receipt of a request on behalf of Baccio DLC Corp., 5 to 7 College View Avenue, Poughkeepsie, New York, for waiver of the 30-day review period for a liquor license application. Be it further resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby approve the town clerk's forwarding of a waiver and consent pursuant to the attached request. So moved.
Second.
Got a motion second. Any questions on that one? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And number 9 has been pulled from the agenda to a further date. That brings us to the end of our meeting. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for any item at all.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anybody that would like to bring up any item at all?
I don't see any hands raised.
A motion to resume the rules?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would just like to make a comment. Saturday, Town of Poughkeepsie with Arlington Business District, Eastdale Village, and the Poughkeepsie Galleria will be holding a holiday caravan. It'll be starting at Eastdale Village at 5 o'clock, parading down 44, down Raymond Avenue, onto 376, down the Spackenkill Road, and into the Older Drive Park area, winding through the neighborhoods, coming back out on the Spring Road, and it will finish with a loop around the Galleria Mall. So anybody that would like to come out or participate, business owner or residents, and decorate their vehicle, please come at 4:30 to Eastdale Village for the lineup, and then we'll start at 5 o'clock. And feel free to bring your family, friends out for a nice, safe, social night. There's quite a few areas along the route, the parks, Raymond Avenue, parts of 376, and the ring road of the Galleria Mall, where you can sit and enjoy the caravan. As of now, we have over 30-some vehicles that'll be decorated and will be part of this caravan. So in the times everybody doesn't have too many places to go, I think this is a really good chance to go out. And I want to thank Mark Pfeiffer and the Arlington Bid for helping put this together, and Eastdale Village offering up their spot in the Galleria to help us promote this event.
And before that, we're going to have a holiday shopping village at the Arthur has made the old school on Raymond Avenue, and that's going to be from noon to 4. So hopefully we don't get rained on too much.
It should be nice.
Is it supposed to rain?
Anybody got anything else? If not, make a motion to adjourn?
Nope.
Oh, didn't I say we got anything else?
I thought comments. All right. Be resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby adjourn to executive session to consider the following: discussions regarding pending litigation, to discuss matters which are exempt under the open meetings law, including matters subject to attorney-client privilege, and be it resolved that no action appropriating money will be taken. So moved.
Second. Got a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Town board goes into executive session at 9:58 PM. See you all in a minute.